Okay, this is the Between. This is the Between Long Con. We're playing 3 sessions for Gauntlet Con 2018. These are technically playtest sessions, but we are operating off of the now quite outdated alpha rule set. But we're using the alpha while the beta is being written. But I think we'll all still be able to get a really good sense of what the game is about, what the themes it explores are, and how fun it is. So I like to begin. Actually, I think it'd be really helpful right now if we just begin by introducing ourselves. Just say your name, anything you want to know about us, or anything you want people to know about you. If you have a social media handle or something like that, and what your pronouns are as well, please. So my name is Jason. I'm the principal organizer of the Gauntlet, and my pronouns are he, him. Lucian?
Hi, I'm Lucian Khan. I am a game designer. I live in Brooklyn. I am that weirdo who designed Dead Friend, a game of necromancy. I am currently working on a game called Visigoths versus Molgoths. And my game Grandma's Drinking Song is about to be in Codex. Yay! Oh, my pronouns are he and him.
Thank you. Ollie?
Hi, I'm Ollie Jeffrey. I'm on Twitter at @OJeffrey, which is Jeffrey, because no one can spell that right. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a games designer, and I did the layout on the first 2 volumes of Codex.
And finally, David.
Hi, yeah, I'm David Morrison. I'm a relatively new member of the Gauntlet community. I don't really have much involvement in games other than enjoying playing them a lot. Yeah, looking forward to this. My pronouns are he, him as well.
Fantastic, thank you. So I want to begin by doing what is called CATS. That stands for Concept, Aim, Tone, and Subject Matter. And that is, it's just a way of sort of establishing expectations at the table before we begin playing, so that we're all somewhat at least on the same page with certain things. So the concept of the Between is you all play monster hunters in Victorian London. And I apologize to the 2 Englishmen on the call that I don't actually know London that well. I'm just kind of making it up as we go. So the final game will have a very nicely fleshed out Victorian London setting. But for these early play tests, everything's just East London or some other part of London, right? So you are Victorian, you're monster hunters in Victorian London. And by monsters, sometimes these are literal monsters, and sometimes they're like serial killers and things like that, right? You all live in this stately mansion called Hargrave House, and you treat each other like colleagues. You always refer to each other as Mr. or Ms. And you have dramatic tensions in the day and small talk in the parlor, and then at night you go out and you hunt monsters. So it's inspired directly by the TV show Penny Dreadful, which is very good. I recommend you watch it if you haven't. And it also takes a lot of inspiration from British horror classics like The Picture of Dorian Gray, Frankenstein, things like that, as well as the graphic novels From Hell and to some degree The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, not quite so much their own tone. So it's called Between because for lots of different reasons, but the main thing you need to know is that this game loves to play with time. We often like narrate like dark, terrible things happening, even to the point of like watching the player characters get murdered and be dead. But then we reverse time and we see the alternate timeline where they are not murdered and dead, right? So the game plays with time a lot like that. It's called The Between because your characters are situated in a very, very liminal moment in their lives between a past that's trying to catch up to them and a future that does not look great. And it's also called The Between because at a sort of meta level, as players, you are all called upon to do quite a bit of world creation and almost like GM-like responsibilities, probably more than most other games. This game asks you to switch between these roles of like player and quasi GM like quite freely, and so that is another kind of a reason why it's called The Between. So the aim of this particular session, we are going to create characters. We're going to introduce them, and then we are going to play. The game has a very like purposely rigid day-night structure, and I think this is a slightly longer session than normal that I normally schedule. We'll at least finish this sort of opening scene that we always start with, and then like a full day phase. We may get into the night phase. We'll kind of see how we're going on time. But that's our aim for today. The tone of the game is dark. Particularly in the night phase, I want to really, really maintain a dark tone. So as best you can, just like kind of hold your levity for the breaks and stuff, or in the chat, that's fine too. But yeah, I want to maintain a really nice dark tone. This game is very, as you're going to discover very quickly, this game is very sensual. It lingers on sensual details, and it has a very, particularly during the day phase, it has an almost languid pace to it, right? It's very like drawn out, very sensual, very languid, until it's not, until a murderer is like, stabs you in the gut and you're bleeding out in the alley, right? So it has like this sort of like interesting pace and tone, and we just want to do our best to maintain that. In terms of subject matter, this is probably a little more gnarly than most games I run. It is sex is definitely on the table in this game. There is a lot of kink subtext in the playbooks. There is just a lot of gore and grossness as well. So just know that going into it. I'm still going to put a partition around like sexual violence, or at least like on-screen sexual violence. I think I prefer to keep that off screen at the least. You're going to be dealing with like prostitutes who were murdered by serial killers and stuff like that, right? Like there's gonna be a lot of like implied nastiness, but we don't have to like go into all the details, right? In any case, the X card will be on the table. So if you find that you are having something happens you don't enjoy, if it's making you uncomfortable in an unfun way, by all means, click on the X card in the die roller, or just type it in the chat, and we will stop and fix it. I may ask you what's being X carded for clarification, but I will never ask you why is it being X carded. And I think that is it for cats. Do you all have any questions about any of that? Sounds good. Great. In that case, I'm going to go ahead and direct your attention to the folder. No. So I don't have character keepers made up for this, because initially when I was running these playtests, one of the things I was playtesting was like the physical playbooks and like the order of things and placement of things. And so I never made a character keeper for it. So if you are able to print your playbook, that's great. If not, just be able to take a couple of notes about your character somewhere. There's not much information to track. But go ahead and pop open the folder. And it sounds like you guys were already deciding what you wanted to be as far as characters go. That's great. If you want to open up a document called Rules, it's the last one in the folder there alphabetically. If you scroll down, there is a little character creation section that you can follow to make your character. You're going to want to stop at step 8 where it says, step 7 really, where it says wait for everyone to be finished. But essentially it just boils down to choosing a name, choosing a look, choosing an abilities line, writing all the values down, and then choosing a move, and then choosing an asset. And then for the asset, once you decide on what that is, you're going to put that on there's a Google sheet that says Hargrave House. You're going to want to put that asset in the section where it says assets. So has everyone settled on their playbook at this point? Okay, cool. If y'all could just like type it or say it so we don't accidentally double up, that'd be.
I am the undeniable.
Undeniable. I figured as much. It's great. You are undeniable, Lucian. So
Thank you.
makes sense.
I am going to go for the mother.
Love it. And just FYI, the mother does not have to be a woman. The playbook name is gendered, but the character does not have to be.
And I'm going to go for the vessel.
Fantastic. Good. So, yeah, great. So, note about the vessel. The vessel is probably the most like the playbook that probably of these 5 that can get into the most squicky territory. Well, the undeniable does too, but there's some squickiness with the vessel because the playbook assumes that the character has been having sex with dark entities for a good portion of their life. And so I will let you decide, David, like what level of consent is there between your character and the dark entities. Whenever we would see your character engaging in a sexual act with a dark entity, you're almost always the person solely narrating it. So you have control over what that looks like. So just know that. But the implication is that it's like in the beginning, at least, it was maybe quasi-consensual as opposed to fully consensual.
Yeah,
right?
That's fine.
So just know that. And the undeniable is totally villainous, and it's great. It's a fun playbook. And the mother's the playbook getting the most overhaul in the beta, Ollie, but it still plays pretty well. It's still pretty good and solid. You'll get a good flavor for it or a good feel for it. But it is getting a pretty drastic overhaul in the beta, so just know that.
Okay, cool. I read combination Dr. Frankenstein and Sherlock, and that deeply appealed.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, it's right on the nose. So yeah, just fill out your playbook material, and that's basically just kind of go through all that. We'll stop. We'll introduce characters, then we'll do dramatic conflicts together as well. Whenever you're all caught up. And if you have any questions, just let me know. One thing I'll note, there are a couple of like early rules changes that were made during the playtests, which I've adapted into these playtests, but the sheets don't reflect them yet. The main one that you need to be aware of is that there's no longer a harm track. Now there's only physical conditions and emotional or psychological conditions. And so any moves, this is particularly applies to the undeniable and the mother, any moves where it says clear harm, we just translate that to be clear physical conditions instead. So. One other thing I'll say while you're all working on that. This game is different from many games in that you are discouraged, and indeed in many cases absolutely forbidden, from speaking about your character's past. And this is both in character and out of character. So when we get ready to do character introductions, you won't be saying much. You're going to be telling us their name, what they look like. If you have a cool move, awesome. But otherwise, during the game, you must always be like quite circumspect and indeed avoid conversations about your character's past. In the fiction, people will ask you things, right? But you have to like demur or get awkward or otherwise avoid the conversation, right? It's particularly important that you avoid ever talking about the elements of your past that relate to a part of your character sheet called the mask of the past. The details that are implied by those statements on the mask of the past, you must always avoid talking about those. Those have to absolutely be under lock and key until you're able to talk about them, until you're directed to.
What do the abilities mean?
Great question. Thank you. Everybody asked that, and I never think to remember to tell everyone. Let me pull up I've somehow managed to. All right, here we go. Okay, so it's a little broad. They're broadly interpreted, but vitality is anytime you deal with it involves your physical condition, your strength, or your quickness. That's vitality. Composure is like your nerve or your ability to, it's basically your nerve. It's your nerve, your ability to keep cool in a situation. Reason is just what it sounds like. It's like observing things, puzzling things out, or just knowing things. Presence is essentially, that's your social stat. It's like it's kind of a combination of charisma and just sort of general, like your presence in the world. So whenever your personality solves a problem, you roll on presence. And then sensitivity is whenever you rely on dark things, supernatural things to solve problems, then you will roll with sensitivity. Even if you're not the vessel and you can make a good case for like somehow tapping into the unseen sort of supernatural aspects of the world to do something, you get to roll sensitivity, right? So the vessel just is aided in very particular ways with their moves. So.
And the other question I had was, how likely are we to get another move during the con?
Very likely. It usually takes about 2 sessions. So.
Okay, cool. Because I'm torn between 2 of them, so I wanted to see if I had the chance to get the other.
Yeah. And some of the playbooks, like I think of these 3, it's just the mother. You have a special move which is about creating the child, right? So. Assets, just so you all know, assets are they're elements that you add to Hargrave House, and everyone has access to them. So they're not just yours. Everyone else has access to them. In some cases, like the Undeniables collection asset, if you choose that one, Lucian, that is not necessarily like out for everyone to get access to, but we just sort of fudge it in the fiction. They steal it from you or something, right? So. If you find a great picture of your character, by all means, insert them on the Hargrave House sheet on the right there, if you want.
I have a GIF, so I've put the GIF in the chat.
Nice. In case you're curious why the mother is called the mother, in addition to the fact that, they are creating a child, the conversation I had with Kate Bullock a long time ago was about how Dr. Frankenstein is frequently portrayed like as a femme character because he creates life, right? And so he's always kind of like feminized in various media. And I liked that idea, and so I decided to call this playbook, who is people often choose to play a man, but it's the mother. So.
That's have you seen Bride of Frankenstein?
I have, yeah. Oh,
That's very much the case.
No, I haven't seen Bride of Frankenstein. No, is that the case? Yeah.
Yeah. He is super femme in Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
I actually did an essay on Frankenstein and Brave New World back in school about men supplanting the role of motherhood in through science and stuff. So yeah, it's
Did everybody get my image?
I did. I see it. Yeah. Is that
It's Morpheus from Sandman.
right? Yeah. Okay.
But like the pale, curly-haired, sort of weirdly fey but strong jaw version.
I was gonna say Timothy Chalamet until you said strong jaw. Then
Like a little more like a more sort of squared off face, like this very like lush curly hair.
Yeah. Every person in the playtest who have played a undeniable who is not a woman, like they played a man undeniable, they've always had this like Timothy Chalamet look, right? This like very particular kind of look that everyone apparently believes to be very beautiful. So yeah.
I'm thinking of mine as less twinky.
That's what I'm saying. This is less the twink version. Yeah.
Maybe like late 20s, early 30s, like slightly built shoulders, but like really pale.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. Yeah, everyone else always goes for the twink version. So
yeah.
Mix it up.
Right.
Right. Once everyone's ready, just give me a thumbs up in the chat. Just say you're ready. Cool. David, was that thumbs up? Okay. All right, cool. So, yeah. Let's take a look at our rules procedure. For those of you who are not David, you'll want to go to that Hargrave House sheet in the folder and just type in your character name on the left there, and then whatever asset you chose in that box on the right. I can get you the folder too if you need it, but you all should have it, I guess. I haven't seen the Fanatics in a while. They're fun.
Always wanted Fanatics.
What do the Fanatics do? Because I was thinking about taking the Resurrectionists, but I don't want to leave us swimming in NPCs.
The Fanatics. Oh, go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
Oh, the Fanatics are basically people who sometimes show up to Hargrave House, asking about Jack Sebastian or Undeniable, and if something happens to Jack Sebastian, the Fanatics continue to show up, and like Hargrave House becomes this like like a shrine or whatever to him, right? And so you get to still continue manipulating them because you have like all of Jack's personal effects and things like that. So yeah.
Cool. I will still go with the Resurrectionists then.
Yeah.
I think I've realized something. Are we allowed to like talk about your character's present profession and things like that?
Yes, the main thing you must avoid is whatever's on that list of the Mask of the Past on your playbook. You cannot talk about those things, and get familiar with them because they are the kind of the core of like what you'll gradually be revealing to us about your character.
But we don't have to decide these all now.
No, but you just need to be kind of mindful of them, I think. Yeah.
Can we know what they are? As in, can we decide what they are in advance, or is that something that we have to reveal and play?
You as a player can look over it and decide as you wish. You just can never tell us.
Okay.
Okay, great. It's a very interesting like cognitive space that this game operates in, and it always takes a minute to get used to, but once you do, it starts to make sense. So.
Can I tell you something about my character's current profession, or should I wait?
We'll do introductions. Yeah, we'll do introductions. So let's introduce them, and like I said, we want to keep it fairly prescribed. What you tell us about your character, just keep it to the very, very basics, and also the game assumes that your characters have been working together for some time as well. So we kind of start with you all already knowing each other well enough to be living together and hunting monsters together, right? So we avoid all the getting to know you kind of stuff because you can't. So,
and also, I'm guessing we're in no doubt that monsters are definitely real.
Yes, you do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and straight away, like the very first scene, there's like you'll see like you guys are already aware of like the existence of vampires in the world and that kind of thing. So cool. All right, so let's introduce characters. I'm going to go in the order that you've entered them on the sheet here, and that would be David. Please tell us about Vivian de Montfort.
Certainly. So Vivian's an aristocratic young man. He's a fellow of the British Library. Works as a so he doesn't really have a trade as such, but for what it is, he works with antiquarian books. And that was sort of his in Hargrave House. He was sort of brought in to maintain their library. He's quite thin, quite slight, not particularly tall. Lots of curly blonde hair, blue eyes, very cherubic looking. Has sort of the little pince-nez glasses that he wears when he's reading, that has them sort of on the chain around his neck most of the time. Tends to wear quite conservative suits, usually in sort of browns, three-piece suits sort of thing. Dresses well, but not stylishly. Would be tweeds if they weren't in the city, and so that's obviously not the done thing.
I'm looking at the image. He's very pretty. Yeah, he's a very, very, very pretty young man.
Yes, yep. He's quite very reserved, not very proper.
I love it. What movie did you choose?
I chose A Beacon in the Dark. So essentially, I can, when I walk the streets of London at night, I can encounter strange things, which may be helpful, and will almost certainly not get me into trouble.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. So whenever you get ready to fire off that move, we'll talk about it in more detail. But that's great.
Sure thing.
Fabulous. And you have the occult library.
Oh, yes, and yes, I had the occult library to the assets. Yep.
Fabulous. Okay, cool. Lucian, tell us about Jack Sebastian.
Jack Sebastian. He is the undeniable. He is extraordinarily sensual, forward, unabashed. He looks, as I said before, like Morpheus from Sandman Comics. He's this very pale, strong jaw, tumbling, luxurious black curls, very supple lips, this just very striking, statuesque person. And he has bright blue eyes, so really striking. And he comes from an aristocratic family. He has enough money that he doesn't really need to work, but he does actually moonlight as the entertainment slash spiritualist for parlor seances. So he's very often seen in these like spinning tables, kind of contact the dead scenarios, but is not like, this is separate from his monster hunting. This is all just like parlor theatrics.
I love the idea. I'm imagining him like, sort of, he has a following of rich old dowagers, right?
Yeah. Who and separate from that is legitimately a monster hunter, but he has this whole charlatanism thing as well.
Yeah, I love it. It's good. And what move did you choose?
Oh, I chose Taketh Away, which is when you destroy a GM character physically, emotionally, or socially, describe how it makes you feel, and then roll with vitality, and various things can happen as a result.
All your problems go away, essentially. Yeah.
I destroy an NPC physically, emotionally, or socially. And then I'm not, the asset I took was the Fanatics, which is at the start of every day, I can just have some person who's obsessed with me show up at the house.
Yep. All right. Good. Thank you. I love it. Finally, Ollie, please tell us about Ida Belkis.
Belkis. Yes, so I am playing Ida Belkis. She is, she kind of looks like a Tim Burton stop motion figure come to life. She's very tall, very thin, very pale. She dresses exclusively in men's clothes, so she dresses in a tailored suit. She has she kind of exaggerated features, so very red lips, very dark hair. She looks kind of like a sexy scarecrow. And she works as a mortician, but she also moonlights as a doctor for people who aren't able to seek either through cash or because they've become injured in some sort of like scurrilous way, for people who can't seek professional help. And I've taken the move night work, so I also assist Scotland Yard with inquiries, particularly in some of the stranger murders of people that they find dragged out of the Thames, that sort of thing. I have taken the asset, the resurrectionists, so I have 3 grave robbers who can assist me in both my investigations and in finding the pieces for my child.
Fantastic. And one important detail that is not clear from the playbook, but is important, is your laboratory where you're creating the child. That is somewhere secret in the city. It's not generally known where it is. Okay. And another thing that's, like I said, the mother's getting a lot of work in the beta. Another thing about the mother, though, to know is that if you ever attempt to animate the child before it's done, we don't assume that you're just animating a pair of eyeballs and lungs and trying to make something out of that. We assume that you find like any old body that will do, and then put your special eyeballs and lungs in it and go for it. So yeah. Cool. It has come up. So I said, I've only got eyeballs in a hand. Can I really animate that? No. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And what asset did you choose?
I chose resurrectionists. I have to name them, but I haven't done so yet.
Yeah, it's the first time we see them. You can name them. Cool. All right. Okay, so the next part of beginning the game is to select your dramatic conflicts. This is being renamed tensions in the final game, but we'll go ahead and continue to call them dramatic conflicts for now. So if you look at the second page of the rules, you'll see dramatic conflicts. I'm going to just quickly explain what they are and what they do. So dramatic conflicts are, well, why don't we just read this thing? Characters in the between are very complicated. They each have a dark, unsavory past about which they do not speak. Some have interests that are lurid or even taboo, and they constantly feel the tug of the darkness all around them. Despite this, they are drawn together by the things they have seen, by their shared knowledge of a secret world that would drive normal people to madness. This togetherness is what keeps them safe, but it also leads to tension and sometimes hostility between them. We represent these tensions in play with dramatic conflicts, or DCs. A DC helps the player give shape to the precise tensions that exist between their character and other player characters, as well as creating a space for the players to interrogate those tensions by framing scenes around them, an action that can lead to advancement. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to see on the right there a starting list. That starting list of tensions is, you can choose from that list, or if you want to make up something, that's fine too, but this is a good set to get you started. But basically, you're going to just pick one for another character. Sometimes you choose two characters on them, but in any case, you're going to go through, choose one each, and then we will write them here on the sheet. I think, why don't we just take like a 2-minute break so you guys can take a look at those, get a drink of water or whatever you want to do. It's like a 5-minute break. Take a 5-minute break, get a drink of water or whatever you need, take a look at the dramatic conflicts, decide which one you want to assign, and then we'll go from there. Okay.
Greetings.
Hello. All right. Let's do dramatic conflicts. I'm going to go in reverse order. Something going on in the background. Ms. Belkis, please, what have you chosen?
Okay, so how many of these was I choosing?
Just one.
Choosing one for
Mhm.
just one. Okay,
Just
cool. I think that I'll grab everyone's name. I think that Jack thinks they're too good for this sort of work, but I will show them it's the most important endeavor they are likely to ever engage in.
Fantastic. If you'll just rewrite that on the Google Sheet in the third person, in one of those little, you'll see these like merged cells beneath your names that have little check boxes underneath. Just write in one of those longer cells, but do it in the third person. So Ida will show Jack, or better yet, Ms. Belkis will show Mr. Sebastian.
So I get one of these, right?
You're only choosing one. Yeah.
I'm going to say I cannot bring myself to admit my feelings for Vivian.
Nice. We shall discover why soon enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just rewrite that on the sheet in the third person. Yeah, on the left there, I'll just put sample like right there in those boxes.
Okay, cool.
Damn it, that's still my one.
There can be lots of unspoken, unrequited love. It's okay.
Yeah, no, okay, then we'll go with my original, which is I cannot bring myself to admit my feelings for Jack.
I love it. All right, great. Yeah, just rewrite that there. So, yeah, that's perfect, Ollie. Where you have what you have there. And the little boxes underneath it, basically every time we engage that at the appropriate times, you'll put your initials in those boxes. So.
I don't know how to format anything.
I'll grab it. Hold on. There we go.
My role-playing skills far outrank my Microsoft Excel.
This is not even Microsoft Excel, so.
Is this the World Wide Web?
This is the World Wide Web, yes.
The information superhighway.
It's internet with a capital I. Good. Okay, so we have lots of. I fully expect lots of sexual tension, but reserved behavior nonetheless between the two of you. Yes. Reserved yet obvious tension. Yes.
I think that Ida is fully aware that the two of them are into each other. Just won't talk about it and spend a lot of time.
Well, the fun thing is you can get credit for theirs too, right, Ida? So you can engage any of the dramatic conflicts, even ones that are not yours, right? So.
Oh, one thing I did just want to check before we get going. Ida, is she Dr. Belkis or is she Miss?
I believe you must be Doctor per the playbook, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So I'm Dr. Belkis.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think it says you're referred to as Doctor in the description, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Dr. Belkis. Thank you. All right. Good. I love it. That's great. All right. Yeah, so let's just play. And I'll just teach the rules in a sort of circular way, just as we need them. I will teach them as we need them. Otherwise, just stay focused on the scene and you'll be doing great. We always begin with every brand new campaign of the Between begins the same with the scene we're about to do. And it takes place at night, but it is not an actual night phase scene. It just takes place at night. But because it takes place at night, one of the moves on the reference sheet, the night move, is principally in play. Okay, so just know that. And yeah, so let me tell you what's going on. And here we're going to essentially introduce the first threat. The way this game works is every session, the DI, that's what the GM is called in this game, the DI summarizes each active threat for you and what you learned about it last. And then we play. So this is the introduction of the first threat. It's a vampire. Your characters may not 100% know that, but it is out of character. It is the vampire threat. Okay. So let's do that. So this opening scene, this little in medias res, takes place at an opium den in the Whitechapel district of East London. Whitechapel at this time was dangerous. A few years from now is when Jack the Ripper will be doing his bad business. But it's a dirty, dangerous, poor district in East London. You're at this opium den. This opium den is the known haunt of an accountant, your accountant, named Simon Anglesey Clark. I shall type that in the chat. Simon Anglesey Clark, he went missing 2 nights ago, and you all are just trying to follow leads to figure out maybe what happened to him. And so you're at this opium den where he was known to hang out from time to time. I have some establishing questions. These establishing questions are mechanically, these are built into the game. I'm going to ask each of you a different question, and I'm going to need you to think of the answer and tell me at some point during the session the answer. You can tell us in character if you want to just work it into a scene, or you can just say it just out loud, out of character. If you don't tell me by the end of the session, I'm going to just ask you to tell me out of character what the answer is. And so, question assignments. And this is just to give you as players a chance to some degree, you get to define like what it means for a vampire to be in London, right? That's kind of the idea here. And so, or to define Simon's relationship to Hargrave House. I'm going to begin with Simon did some accounting work. Okay, so this question is going to be for, let's have this question be for Jack, Mr. Sebastian. Simon did some accounting work for Hargrave House, a fact that led to an early theory that whoever took him might be trying to send all of you a message. But there's more to the story than that. Tell me about your secret relationship with Simon. What is the nature of that relationship? Romantic, professional, something else? And why haven't you shared this with your 2 colleagues yet? So just be thinking on that, Lucian. And the next question is going to be for Dr. Belkis. Something about the circumstances surrounding Simon's disappearance, and you get to determine what those are, makes you believe of a vampire or a creature that you have all been calling colloquially a vampire, right? Depending on how much you want to believe in such things, Dr. Belkis. I want to know like what it was about the circumstances that made you think it was a vampire. And finally, for Mr. de Montfort, you believe Simon's disappearance is some sort of trick or lure. Whatever kidnapped him, you believe it is secretly after you. Why? And how come it hasn't taken you already? What is it waiting for? So have those banging around the back of your head for a little bit. If there are some things start happening in the fiction that where it would be handy to have your answer to a question, I may press you on it, but otherwise just be thinking about
it. Does Simon live in Hargrave House?
He does not, no.
Okay, cool.
Can the answer to the question imply the creation of an NPC?
Absolutely.
Great.
So you're all at this opium den, And normally the way I run this, I have you all like entering the opium den, very like, here we are, right? But that feels a little too American action hero to me as I've thought on it. I think instead you're going to all just be at the opium den. You're all aware of each other and you all know what you're there doing, but you could be doing whatever you want in the opium den. So you're all just there in the opium den. I'm going to give you the basics of it, and then I'm going to ask you a paint the scene question to kind of develop the scene a little bit more. But this is an opium den. It's run by Chinese immigrants. In particular, Mrs. Chang is the owner of this establishment. There are mats in rows on the floor with people just lounging about, smoking opium, and there's a bar actually, and there's like a little back area, little office back area, kind of to the rear, and it's dimly lit with oil lanterns. The smell is very intense when you first walk in. And I want to paint the scene here. This is a GM technique that I do a lot if you're not familiar with playing with me yet. And it's actually baked into this game. But the idea is I pose a question to the whole table, myself included. I pose a question to the whole table that is, the answers will help develop a particular thematic idea in the scene. And the thematic idea I want to explore with this paint the scene question is addiction does not know social class. And I want to know what your character sees, or perhaps what the camera sees as we pan around the room. What we see that shows how this is a place where the classes meet. And the first person to have an answer, I just want to know what you're doing in the opium den when we first see you, and I want the answer to that paint the scene question.
Okay, I'm up at the bar where I'm drinking an exceedingly bad Shiraz. I've got there early. I like to pretend that I've got there early because I'm just, I'm very, well, because I'm better than the other two. But the truth of the matter is I just wanted to set up the bar. And the thing that I see that lets me know that addiction has no social class is the guy who was the lecturer in the medical school that I don't know. Yeah, no, I would have qualified. Yeah. So the guy who was my lecturer basically is crumpled in a corner. I'm just kind of looking at him and eye rolling as I drink and then wincing as I drink my bad red wine.
Has there been any mutual recognition? Like, has he seen you too, or is it just you seeing him?
He has seen me, and he kind of looked at me, and you could see him trying to work it out, but he's pretty fucking high right now, so he can't. He just keeps looking over every so often as if he recognizes me, and then just kind of glazes over.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. Thank you. And how are you dressed right now? What do you look like?
I am dressed in a black tailored suit with an overcoat.
Thank you. Who wants to come next into the scene?
I know what I'm doing. I am lounging on a velvet divan. I am high on opium. And my shoes and socks are off, and my feet are being massaged with scented oils by a very rugged carpenter. And he is also high on opium. So our power dynamic certainly contains hints of our social class, but we are both equally able to participate in this social universe.
I love it. And to the extent you are dressed, what are you wearing?
I am still wearing my black long cloak, which sort of billows up at the neck, but has like a plunging neckline, and under it is nothing, just like beautiful alabaster sculpted chest, and no shoes or socks.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'm going to say, for my little detail, whoever was the last one in would have noticed, I think, Mrs. Chang requires everyone to remove their shoes anyway, and you'll notice as you walk in, like the shoes have there are distinct differences between the various pairs of shoes. Some of them are like very fine, velvet, good solid thick heels, and others just, are barely, they're just hanging on by a bit of gristle, right? Like in terms of their leather. Yeah, so that's my detail.
I've taken my shoes off, but I haven't put them down because I don't trust that they would still be there. So I've got my glass of wine in one hand and my
shoes in the other. It's good. Yeah, I like it. Splendid.
Yeah.
What do you want for it?
Vivian will have been the last person to turn up of our merry band. He's probably engaging in a conversation in somewhat rudimentary Mandarin with one of the attendants here, attempting to describe Simon Anglesey Clark. And I think as he's kind of glancing around, he sort of notices a group of sailors who are sort of sharing a couple of pallets, and they're sort of, Chinese, some Lascars from India, some sort of local lads sort of thing, all kind of sharing a pipe between them.
Indeed.
I'm kind of getting a vibe of you as just waltzing in and trying to immediately investigate and just asking questions quite bluntly.
Yeah,
like probably with the book under the arm, kind of a thing.
Have you been? I mean, like before we kind of arrived at the scene, you said you got there early, or we believe you got there early. Had you already started like chatting up Mrs. Chang and various people who work there to try to like figure out what happened to Simon?
Well, what I'd been looking around, I hadn't been investigating too much, but I had been looking around for any mirrors because all of the mirrors in Simon's apartment were smashed.
Oh, good. We're thinking that might be why. Very, very interesting. You know what? I'll just tell you there is a mirror. I don't think we need a roll there. There is a. So the way this goes is the bar has a long mirror behind it, right? And Mrs. Chang sits in the corner opposite so that she can watch every angle in the room, right? Both like with her by looking left and right and also looking in the mirror. She can see everything. And she sits on like a bar stool in the corner. She does not smoke. Never get high on your own supply. I'm sure Mrs. Chang has some similar saying. And so, yeah, there is a big, long mirror that dominates the room. Would you be... you can go a little deeper here if you want. Like, would you be like trying to engage in some kind of tests or something, or?
Yeah. Okay. So I had this idea that Simon, in particular, collected mirrors. Like he had a collection of antique mirrors. So there were a lot of mirrors to be broken in the house. So I'm currently scanning around, and I've heard folklore about vampires, so I'm just going to be seeing if there's anyone that doesn't have a reflection. And I believed I got here early, at which point I spot that Jack is already there and semi-passed out on a couch. And I'm kind of like semi like, shit. But then I realized that he's not actually outdone me. He was probably just here anyway.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we have if we look at the reference sheet, and then now we'll want to have the reference sheet handy. If we look at the reference sheet, there's a move called the information move. When you conduct research or attempt to gather information, you're going to roll 2d6 plus an ability. I think I'm actually going to go with sensitivity on this, because I think we're definitely at the intersection of just observation and supernatural behavior, right? So roll that. I can get a roll for your party too, real quick. Let me grab one. We are going to be an absolutely desired walleye. It's the undeniable of the walleyes. So have fun there.
So it's very tired. Is this
I have too many windows open.
What were you saying, Lucian?
Sorry, is this all 2d6? Or are these all?
It's all 2d6, yeah. If you have regular dice, you want to roll regular dice,
I
that's
think
fine.
I'm just going to grab a pair of dice.
Yep, no problem.
I got a 6.
A 6. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll wait for Lucian to come back. That gives me a minute.
I'm going to grab a couple of extra dice as well.
Yeah. I muted you, Ollie, while you're doing that. I put you on mute, Ollie, just while dice were rattling around. So, Dr. Belkis got a 6, which is a miss. I'm actually going to give you your information, but maybe not in the way you wanted. You mentioned that you were looking at Jack being attended to by this carpenter. And I think maybe Jack's not aware of it, but I think 2 more strong, able men are flanking him near the head of the divan, right? Engaging in various ministrations. And you see that, and perhaps you roll your eyes at some point, right? And then you turn and you look in the mirror and you don't see anyone tending to Jack. The 3 individuals who were doing this, it's just Jack laying there, right? Kind of flailing and kicking a little bit, right? Strangely. And I think it's even getting worse than that. Jack, in his opium-induced stupor, does not realize that his blood, rivulets of blood, are streaming from his nostrils and his ears and his eye ducts and his mouth, streaming into the mouths of these 3 vampires. So we just see little droplets of blood in the lantern light. First of all, when you see this, Dr. Belkis, how do you feel?
So I was kind of amused up until that point, but then I just feel kind of a sudden chill go through me, starting at the stomach and just all the way up to my throat.
I want you to take a condition. The condition is going to be chilled to the bone. Is your condition. So you want to note that one of your 4 condition slots.
Okay.
And what do you do? And also, I'll tell you this as well, other thing. So this is, we all kind of understand the rules here. At any time, after I have narrated, or at some point during the narration, what's going to happen, or if it's if someone else has narration rights, but usually you'll only do it if I'm narrating things. At any time, if you don't like the result of the fiction, you can choose to do what's called the Janus Mask. You can invoke the Janus Mask. And if you invoke the Janus Mask, what you do is you look at your list of the Mask of the Past or the Mask of the Future, and you mark one of those boxes. If you mark Mask of the Past, you have to mark the first box. You mark one of those boxes, and then at some point before the session ends, you have to do whatever it says. But by doing that, by marking the Janus Mask, you get to, the alpha rules are you get to change your result to a 12 plus from whatever it was. I'm actually we're going to test out something different for this, and we're going to say you just bump up to the next highest level. So your 6 minus would become a 7 to 9 instead. I'm not done yet, though. So you see these little rivulets of blood. You're feeling chilled to the bone. And I think you also see, and Jack is just unaware of it, you see, a throbbing in Jack's neck, a large throbbing ball of flesh near his artery. It looks like the blood just wants to rip out, and that will be the end of Jack. What do you do? If you wish to use a Janus mask, now is the time, but otherwise we can roll on in the scene. So, oh, you're muted.
I'm going to use the Janus mask to rewind a little bit so that we don't have quite the bursting neck.
Indeed. So, Mark, Mask of the Past or Mask of the Future, your choice. I think the only one that makes sense for the mother is Mask of the Past.
Yes.
And yeah.
Do I have to speak that out loud, or
we'll deal with that later.
Okay.
For right now, though, your move becomes a 7 to 9 instead of a miss. And so now we rewind. You didn't see any of that. Now we just see you scanning the room again, and per the information move on a 7 to 9, you get to ask a question from that list.
Okay. I do not have the reference sheet. Can you send me the folder? I have too many windows open.
Oh, sure. One sec.
What are the questions? Because you probably know them off by heart before I find them.
I don't offhand, but it's what happened here recently? What here is not what it appears to be? What here is useful or valuable to me? Who or what is most vulnerable to me? What's my best way in? What's my best way out?
What here is not what it appears to be.
Yeah. I'm going to just essentially tell you the same thing, but it won't be quite as bad.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, you look at the mirror and you see just the carpenter as previously described, massaging Jack's feet. Not in the mirror, you see that out of the mirror. And then when you turn and look in the mirror, you just see nothing. But Jack is more lucid. There's no blood flowing out of his mouth, and it's not quite as it's unsafe situation. But it is confirmed there's one vampire.
Okay, cool. I am going to waltz over to the carpenter. How do we know he's a carpenter, by the way?
He is wearing carpenter clothes, like actual proper clothes of a trained carpenter. You also might notice if you looked at his hands that they're very calloused.
Okay, cool. Before I go over there, I'm going to say to Madam Chang, excuse me, the wine, can I have the bottle, please? And I pay her for whatever the bottle is.
Yeah.
Grab the bottle, kind of by its neck, and walk over to the carpenter. And as I walk over, I just kind of drape my arm around him. Hugo, sweetheart, how are you? And I'm kind of dragging him away from Jack.
Well, Jack, you're in the scene now, so what's going on?
Why are you taking him away? He's being so serviceable. Jack sort of just flops to the side, sort of reaching out his arm in the vague direction of Hugo, who's being pulled away.
I have no idea if this guy's called Hugo or not.
Yeah, I know. He kind of says, "I'm sorry, madam, but I think you've got me mistaken for someone else."
No, I definitely know you, sweetie. And are there like booths here at all?
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna try and is he high?
I think it's an open question whether vampires can get high, but he seems to be. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, if he's feeding off of Jack and Jack is high, that might work.
Mm-hmm. He's actually not, though. That's the thing. Like he's like specifically not feeding off Jack right now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I'm gonna try and I'm acting drunker than I am, and I'm gonna try and push him into one of the booths. I'm gonna try and make it look my best, like we're just gonna fuck. But that is not what's actually gonna happen.
I'm gonna cut away for a minute. What are you up to right now, Mr. Mofford?
So as I think probably as this is going on, I'm probably still talking to one of the attendants at the opium den. Yes, I'm looking for a friend, Mr. Anglesey Clark. I believe he was a patron of your establishment. Have you seen him at all?
And this is just a fellow who works at the opium den.
Yeah.
And you're saying it in your best Mandarin.
Yeah, which is passable, but not not.
Let's do the night move. So if we look at the reference sheet,
Yeah,
the night move says if you do something risky, and I think maybe like badly speaking Mandarin could pose a risk, even if it's just a small risk.
Yep.
If you do something risky, name what you're afraid will happen if you fail.
I think, the obvious one here is that, I'll offend someone and, these probably aren't the sort of people you want to offend, really. I'll end up, getting beaten up in a back alley.
Yeah. And then I have to say how it's worse than you fear. I think that's correct. I think you will cause offense, and you will get beaten up. But they're not just going to beat you up; they're going to humiliate you and then beat you up.
Sure thing.
If you wish to continue with this, go ahead and roll with. I think it would be reason. Certainly.
That's an 8 in total.
An 8. And if you continue reading the move, on a 79, you do it, but there's a complication or cost. I describe it looks like. Your Mandarin is passable and good. This man you're talking to, he's probably about your age, and he has kind of a slight, you say a word and he has a slight smile on his face. And you're trying to talk to him and he just continues to smile, like he's very distracted by something you just said. And he's like, you aren't used to speaking in Mandarin, are you, sir?
No, I've studied a little, but not really had much chance to put into practice.
He says, you just referred to me by, I think the best way to put it in English would be Mr. Chicken Wrangler. I don't really know what that means, but it is amusing in its way. What is your name, sir?
De Montfort, Vivian de Montfort. Pleasure to meet you.
Yes, Mr. de Montfort. Are you here to partake of the poppy?
No, as I say, I'm just here looking for a friend.
I see. What kind of friend? Like a friend to take back home tonight? That sort of friend?
Oh, dear Lord, no. No, just a colleague, really, business acquaintance. He
looks around
frequents here, I believe.
In your surroundings, right? Like, this is where you've come to find your colleague. He says, what was your friend's name? Your colleague's name?
Simon Anglesey Clark. And give a vague description of him.
Sure, yeah. It's like, yes, I know him. I know Mr. Anglesey Clark. He comes in here rather frequently with one of a combination of 3 sisters, sometimes 1 or 2, sometimes all 3. They're called the Wemberleys.
I see. Well, that's not quite the place I'd bring. No offense to yourself, of course. Well, thank
trust
you.
me, the Wemberleys are not the sort of women to be upset by an environment like this, let me assure you.
Well, quite. Thank you very much for your time, my good man.
So what are you doing after this?
Well, I suppose it's probably a bit late for a social call this time of night, so I shall be returning home, no doubt.
Oh. Are you going to take a cab? Or are you going to walk?
We'll probably take a cab, yes.
Oh, no. I was going to say, if you were going to walk and you didn't mind some company, I'm almost done here for the night.
I see. I could certainly. Yes, I could. I suppose it wouldn't hurt to practice my Mandarin a little, if you don't mind.
I wouldn't mind at all. And yeah, the two of you can slink off into the night if you want.
Yep.
Mr. Sebastian, so this got a little bit less fun just now. You are here to find Mr. Simon Egglesey Clark. What are you up to?
I am going to. Can I, from where I'm lying, do I overhear Simon Inglesey Clark's name being said by these Mandarin speakers over here?
Probably, because the words that stick out to you are probably Simon Egglesey Clark, right? Yeah.
So, is there a mechanism for like catching them before they leave if they've already slunk off into the night?
Oh, you can totally go catch them. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to sort of stumble languidly toward the door, and I'm going to wave my hand toward the attendant and say, "You there, attendant? Did you hear the name of my friend that I told you I was looking for? Oh, it's so hot in here. Did you hear the name of Simon Anglesey Clark?"
I will tell you that this person you're talking to, I think they have their back to you, and they're like in the little, maybe they're like right at the threshold of the little hallway that goes to the back, right? And they're the only person who's like, everybody else is just kind of like, high out of their gourd, right? So you're kind of talking to this person. I will tell you that you see quite suddenly, possibly to your dismay, depending on your tastes, that he has somebody else with him, and they're carrying something between them, wrapped in a tarp, and you've been around the block enough to know that that looks like a body being carried out back. And he turns around and says, "I am disposed at the moment, sir." What do you do?
I slur. And what is it that you are disposing of?
Sir, this is none of your business. I think you should go back to your pipe.
I sort of, out of the corner of my eye, as I'm turning my shoulder to go back to the couch, give him a flirtatious wink and say, "Are you sure that's how you wish to address me?"
We're definitely going to night move now. What are you afraid will happen right now if you fail in this little endeavor?
I'm afraid that I am going to get into a bar fight.
Oh, it's worse than that. Men who are disposing of bodies usually don't want to be observed doing it, and they're going to lure you into that hallway and spill your guts on the floor. Do you wish to continue?
As a technical question, if my character dies, do I get to continue as someone who is dead?
Well, so you would just use the Janus mask to improve your results, so you wouldn't be dead.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great. I do wish we could continue. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
You have all the in the beginning of the game. You have a lot of incentives to like push into it, right? So,
Great. So which stat am I
I
rolling?
think presence. Yeah.
Presence. Yep. So that's an 8.
Complication or cost?
I would like a complication.
Yeah. Oh, I think I just I don't think it's
Oh,
there's not a
it's-
decision there. Yeah, it's just a it's me. I just described what the complication or cost is.
Well, I guess I'll find out which I get.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, we'll develop this a little bit more. So you're trying to like put on the charm, right? Like
I'm trying to put on the charm and flirt with him and try to get him to give me information because I'm hot. And you know, this is not totally unusual for me to be flirting with a criminal.
Yeah. So this guy, he's kind of a bigger, kind of like broad-shouldered guy, Chinese, wearing like a white wife beater, right? So his muscles are out, you know. And he he says, and he kind of like at this point he kind of like beckons you into the hall a little bit to get away from the main, you know, throng, right? And he says, I can tell you're the kind of person who likes to poke his nose into the dark corners of the city, huh?
Yes, the dark corners of the city.
He's like, and he kind of like positions his body to where like you're between a wall, the hallway wall, and him. He says, so you like to do dangerous things? You like to see dangerous things? Rich boy coming out to Whitechapel to get his hands dirty? Is that the idea?
Oh, my hands are already dirty.
Says, well, I'll tell you, I don't know anything about your friend. I'm not here usually. I'm just here taking care of something for Mrs. Chang.
Well, it would be a shame.
He pointedly looks at the body, right?
Right. Well, it would be a shame to miss such an opportunity for a, let us say, underground acquaintance.
And I think I think he's into this. I suppose the question now just becomes like, what's your goal here in the scene? What are you trying to get him to do?
I want to know who the body is.
Oh, good.
What's going on here?
And he tells his friend to scram, and they pull the body into this little room to the side. He tells his friend to scram. He tells you to come in, and he says, and he goes and he undoes the tarp, and it's a body, a man's body that is very, very pale, like almost like stark white pale. And he says, do you mind if we have a little audience?
Do I recognize the body?
No.
I say to him, is this man for business or pleasure?
He looks and he says, I don't really know, truth be told. But I dispose of a lot of bodies, and I got to tell you, this is definitely one of the more interesting ones.
Well, it seems a shame to waste.
And he says, can I show you something interesting?
By all means.
And he takes your hand and he like guides your hand down to the neck, right? And he's like using your fingers to stroke the body's neck where there are puncture wounds on the neck. And he says, "This is not the first time I've seen a wound like this." And then he moves your hand behind the head of the body, and you feel wet, squishy skull matter and brain. He says, "But this is unusual. They had to kill him first before the creature could feed."
The creature, you say?
What else could it be?
And where is this creature now?
You're asking questions I don't know the answer to. But he pulls your hand out from behind the body's head, which are your fingers are now sticky with semi-coagulated blood, and he licks them off.
Does he seem to be getting sustenance from this, or is he?
I think he's just a pervert. Yeah. There's no kink shaming, but he's doing his thing.
I'm gonna push my hand farther into his mouth. And
nice.
See how that goes. Yeah.
You've gotten all the information out of this scene. I feel like we're good.
Yeah.
Ollie, are you back? I don't know if, Ollie, you're muted if you're talking. I don't know if you're trying to talk. Okay, so I don't know if Ollie is with us or not. I don't hear him. So maybe if you're in the chat, Ollie, you can tell us what's going on. Right. Why don't we take 5 minutes and we'll come back. Okay. Ollie, can you hear us? Are you able to speak? Cannot hear Ollie. Well, looks like we might just guess we'll just press on and catch him up whenever we're able to. Before we leave that scene with you putting your fingers deeper into the mouth of this man disposing a body in the back of the opium den, upon seeing this dead body drained of most of their blood and also just the sort of creepy necro shit that's going on, how are you feeling right now?
I am feeling both terrified and aroused. So I'm excited by the fact that this is such a taboo situation.
Yeah.
But I'm genuinely afraid I'm going to end up dead.
I'm going to give you the condition terrified and aroused. So note that on your conditions. All right. And I think if we don't get Ollie back, I think that'll just be the end of that particular little in medias res, and we can figure out what happened to Dr. Belkis at some point later. Yeah. So I'm going to give Ollie one more minute to try to come back, and then we'll get going. But I think we saw, we saw Mr. de Montfort stumbling off into the night, probably unclear about the intentions of that man.
Definitely unclear about.
And yeah, so. But you actually all learned quite a bit of information. Like, it was a pretty decent little investigation, actually, all things considered. All right, I'm gonna go to Slack and see if Ollie is. He might just have to bail out because it may not get any better. They're on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Right, so sorry about that. I am now on my phone. My computer has died.
Okay. No worries. Oh, you'll need to put some headphones on because you're echoing or something. All right. Yeah, okay, so Ollie, let's catch you up with what was going on. Can you hear us okay?
Yep.
Okay. So basically, Jack Sebastian encountered two men trying to dispose of a body out back. And Jack inserted himself into their business and basically one of the men who was like kind of like taken in by Jack's charm. One of the men who was taken in by Jack's charm actually unwrapped the body for Jack and sort of sensually guided Jack's hand over the forensically interesting parts of that body. The fact that it had puncture wounds on the neck, but also the fact that it had a terrible head wound, so that this person had to be like killed before they could be fed upon, right? So he had this like smashed head wound, and that caused Jack to get a little bit of blood on his fingers, and blood that this man proceeded to lick, and then Jack indulged him and stuck his fingers deeper into the man's throat, and we just faded to black at that point. So
okay, cool.
So that was what's going on there. And then so yeah, we last saw you just pushing an actual vampire into a booth at the opium den. So yeah, I mean, like, he's into it. If you're like gonna pretend at least like you want to make out with him, right? He doesn't have any reason to think that you're, that you're trouble. What's your move here? What are you doing?
So I'm going to keep that pretense up for until the curtain is across. Kind of push him playfully down on the couch there, straddle him, and then when I am straddled him, I am gonna smash him across the head with the wine bottle, which I have in my hand.
This is super dangerous. What are you afraid will happen right now?
I'm kind of drunk and confident, so I'm afraid that the worst thing that's going to happen right now is he's going to get away and we won't find out what's happened to Simon.
I think the worst that's going to happen is I think he may I think it's worse than that. It's worse than that. In fact, he does have 2 other companions there, and the 3 of them are going to feed on you.
Wow. Okay. But yeah, let's push forward.
Give me I think composure, right?
Okay. Oh, nice. That's an 11.
Nice. Were you just hoping to knock him out? Is that the idea?
No, I wasn't hoping to knock him out necessarily. Just kind of stun him so that I could gain advantage, and then I figure he's a vampire. He's going to have like extra human toughness. So I just want to press my advantage a little.
Yeah. You smash it over his head. I think he you can describe it. I mean, you got a 10 plus, so you can describe what it looks like.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I smash him across the temple with this wine bottle, which then does it shatters, and there's the what's left of the wine spills everywhere. And then I push down on top of him with the now broken bottle and put it up to his throat and say, "I'm sure that's not the sort of claret that you'd prefer to have around here. Now, why don't you tell me what happened to Simon?"
And I'm going to just roll forward here. I'm not going to make you roll again. You've got the bottle up against his neck, right? And he just kind of smiles. And I'll tell you, he looks like he doesn't really look like a vampire, right? Like he looks like a carpenter. Like he's like got a lot of meat on his bones. He's kind of like a, very hale looking kind of guy. He might be a baby vampire for all we know. And he says, "Look, madam, I don't know anything about your friend."
When he says "madam," I'm just going to push the bottle in a little further and say, "Doctor."
It's quite a bedside manner you have, Doctor. Listen to me. If I tell you anything, and then he looks up into the rafters of the opium den, and in the rafters of the opium den, you see a little person. You think it's maybe a monkey at first, but no, it's probably a child crawling up in the rafters, and it scutters away into the darkness of the rafters. He says, "If I say anything to you, I have to answer to him."
Oh,
How does that make you feel?
that is insanely creepy. And I think I'm gonna get distracted, staring up at the thing and trying to figure out where it's gone.
And I think he'll push away from you and run away at that point. But I want you to take the unnerved condition.
Okay, cool.
All right. So I think we'll end that. I think everyone's kind of gotten where they need to be. Apologies, David. I feel like you weren't on screen as much, but
that's fine.
You did learn a lot, though. You got the key piece of information. So now we do what's called the day phase. We circle right back into the day phase. So now we begin the day phase, night phase structure. All right. And the day phase, the way it's structured is most of the scenes are framed by all of you. I can end the day phase whenever I wish, but I can't end it until you have all at least had one chance to frame a scene. Okay. When you are framing scenes in the day phase, you need to keep certain goals in mind. There are certain goals connected to the day phase. A principal goal is to frame up a scene in order to interrogate one of your dramatic conflicts. So you have a scene where you chat about one of the dramatic conflicts, one or more. The scene framer is the only person who can get credit in that scene for the dramatic conflicts, and they get to mark their initials on the box. So that's one thing. Another goal of the day phase is to, if you want to try to clear conditions, you can try to frame up scenes in order to trigger what's called the colleague move. And basically it just means an intimate moment where the colleague helps you clear the condition, right, in some way. And then another goal could be to continue the investigation. You might want to follow up on a lead. Or we can just see your character at leisure. And if you're very clever, I suppose you could do all of them at once. So that's the goal of the day phase. And I will also direct your attention to the part of your character sheet that says end of session questions. You want to pay attention to those because this is one of the main ways you get experience points in the game is by answering yes to those questions, right? It'll be unlikely that you'll get the third one, which is about resolving a threat, but you can definitely try to get the first two, right? So you just want to have all that kind of swimming around in your brain. I've gotten an answer about why we think it's vampires. That's already been sorted for us because Simon's mirrors were all smashed up. Do either of the other of you have your answers for the questions, or are you still thinking about it? Or do you want to reveal it and see?
I can tell you.
Yeah, please do.
So my secret relationship with Simon Inglesly Clark is that I was lovers with his priest, Father William, and his priest told me all about Simon's illegal accounting practices, and I have been blackmailing him. It's secret because I'm blackmailing him.
You're blackmailing him, yeah. Picked up on that. Good. Great. Mr. de Montfort, do you have your answer, or do you want to hold it?
Yeah, no, I think I do. So yeah, I believe that Simon's disappearance has been done to lure me in. I think the reason is to kind of piggyback off your sort of standard vampire law. It's almost like the inverse of the they can only come into your house if you invite them. It's that if they take me, then whatever purpose they have for me won't it will sort of spoil the effect, essentially. They need me to go to them of my own.
You have to go to your own will. Yeah. Well, what do you think it is? Do you think it's some kind of ritual or some kind of, like, what do you suppose it is?
Yeah, I think they want to control me. They want to. I think maybe. Well, I think from sort of my perspective and also from character perspective, I'm not sure. I don't think I know exactly what it is they want, but yeah, I think that there's something to do with the my spiritual makeup, as it were. That is valuable to them. I don't think they're connected to it specifically, but I think it's something that would be of use to them.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, like you've spent most of your life, we know, sort of like dealing with these dark forces and things, and so it kind of makes sense that you might be some kind of receptacle or beacon or something that they are interested in. So.
Yeah.
Good, great. I like that angle of like you have to go to them, though. That's pretty good. So that gives me a lot to play with in the fiction. Good. All right, well, the day phase. So I'm going to go ahead and do night work for Dr. Belkis. This is the first chance to kind of do night work. So read that move to us, Dr. Belkis.
I cannot right now because my computer.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Your whole computer died.
It's resetting right now.
Okay.
On my phone.
No worries.
Yeah, Sorry,
get
do you
it.
mind reading that for me?
I'll get it. Yeah, no problem. Night work. When not engaged in the hunt with your colleagues, you spend your nights doing house calls, helping Scotland Yard examine corpses dragged from the river, and of course, working on the child. At the start of each session, you're going to roll with reason, and in this case, it's because it's a weird session. It's just at the start of the day phase.
And that is an 8.
An 8. On a 7 to 9, you get to choose 2 from this list. You gain resources for Hargrave House. No need because none are spent. You learn something interesting about an ongoing threat. You can ask me any question you like, and I'll answer truthfully, but not necessarily completely. Or you manage to get a body part for the child. So basically, the only 2 to take are those last 2.
Okay, cool. I am going to get I'm going to find out some information about the threat that we're dealing with now, the vampire, and I'm going to find. Do I get to choose what body part it is?
Yep, your choice.
Okay.
And you have to tell us why you chose that body part.
Okay.
What was it about it that was great?
Yeah. There was a. Okay, so okay. So I am brought a body that evening by one of the detectives at Scotland Yard, and it is it's the body of a seamstress who was working at one of the factories over in Whitechapel, and she's obviously quite poor. Like her skin is in poor condition. Her hands are heavily calloused and stuff like that. But she's got this beautiful golden hair. And after I was done examining her, I scalped her and took her hair. And it was
Charming.
because it reminds me it's exactly the same hair as the person that I lost.
Yeah, perfect. I love it. And what's your question about the threat?
My question about the threat is, I'm going to ask the detective if there have been any similar murders around the Whitechapel area, with the puncture wounds to the neck and that sort of thing. But I'm gonna try and dress it up a little and make it sound less like I'm asking, have you got any vampires? Like, I'm trying to drop that a little bit and
The DI you're talking to, we'll name him Whitcomb.
Mm-hmm.
Whitcomb. I'm going to type that in the sheet too because we don't want to see him in the future. Whitcomb. He will tell you, we're not going to have the scene, but he'll tell you that he doesn't actually normally work this beat. He normally deals with kind of deals with crimes that are how shall we say, that the middle and upper classes don't want people to know about. So he's known for his discretion, right? So, but he will tell you that they found a similar body. They found a similar body in an alley, drained of its blood, but it was in an alley near a home in the Holland Park, which is a fancier neighborhood in the city, and it's unusual. Right?
Okay, cool. And the body that he's brought me, if he deals with that sort of that upper class stuff, he's worried that it is the work of a lesser boil, like eighth in line to the throne or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those things where this didn't even make the papers, right?
Yes, yeah.
So,
but he kind of wants to, if it is that, he kind of wants to know. But I just I'm afraid not. It's just a run of the mill overdose. But you can leave her with me. And as he goes off, I sort of get out my Gladstone bag and the scalpel.
Yeah, nice, good. That was great. Okay, so Mr. de Montfort, I think we'll give you the first opportunity to frame scenes during the day phase. This doesn't have to be the next day. It just has to be in the day. Okay. So to frame a scene, just tell us who's in the scene with you and what you're doing.
Certainly, yeah. So I think this will actually be the next morning. Probably be sort of breakfast time. I think I want to basically have the pair of you there and sort of pass on what I learned the night before. Yes. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to meet up last night. I did find out a little something though from a Chinese gentleman who worked at the opium den. He was saying that he knew our colleague, and he had seen him there on several occasions in the company of a trio of sisters known as the Wembleys, I believe. So that's what I managed to find out.
Where are we located when this is happening, this conversation?
Yeah, I think sort of in the dining room at Hargreave House.
Having breakfast.
Yeah.
So Jack Sebastian is sort of pushing around the food on his plate, like looking at it suspiciously as if it's not high enough quality for him. And he sighs dramatically and says, "You know, I really expected he might turn up dead, but instead I found some other corpse."
I thank you for your faith in me, but no, I managed to extricate myself from the situation without incurring any physical harm. Yes.
This is a misunderstanding, right? Because Jack was talking about Mr. Anglesey Clark.
So I'm saying I thought Mr. Anglesey Clark would turn up dead. You think I was worried about you. I was.
Yes.
Excellent.
Oh, so I see what you mean. Yes, this body. What did you Yes, sorry. What did you discover then with this other body?
Only that gentlemen who frequent opium dens occasionally are known to, let us say, favor certain textures. That are not generally partaken in by the average man.
I will bow to your superior expertise in this matter. It's I must admit not really my cup of tea. I have to say.
Well, to each his own. And then he lifts up a cup of tea and sips it loudly.
Dr. Belkis, what are you doing right now? You're in the scene too.
I'm looking from one to the other and looking as Mr. de Montfort was blushing as he thought that Mr. Sebastian was briefly worried about him. And I say to de Montfort, de Montfort, how's your head?
Fine, thank you. Why do you ask?
You didn't look like the sort of man who would be frequenting that sort of place. I wondered if the contact high might have been a bit much for you.
Oh, no, it's quite. I did have somewhat troubled dreams, I will admit, but
I kind of turn away before he's even finished, and get to my actual thing, which is, and Mr. Sebastian, how's yours?
I haven't had any complaints.
I'm surprised to see you on tea this morning. I thought you would be on coffee.
Yes, well, I began my evening with opium tea, and I begin my morning with Earl Grey.
And I pull your Earl Grey away and say, you were meant to begin your evening by looking for our missing friend. You did not do this. Do you think you are too good to be looking for our missing friend?
Don't be ridiculous. I love a little extra change as much as the next man, and he owes me money.
Mm. Do you know what we do here? I assume you know what we do here.
Is that the royal we?
Yes, it is the royal we. Increasingly not including yourself, because you spend quite a lot of time just being cavorting with vampires. Hang on, Jason. I assume that's okay. The sort of thing that's okay for us to say in this.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
When you say vampires, I raise an eyebrow and I say, I meant to ask. You don't suppose there's been a particularly unusual uptick in vampires, do you? Because that corpse I saw, and he sort of trails off.
Yes, there was a man who was massaging your feet who had no reflection. There was a terrifying young child going about the rafters of the building, and there are vampire attacks happening in areas where vampire attacks should not be happening. Yes, I think there has been something of an uptake in vampire attacks. I have been looking into it because I take my job here seriously.
At the mention of the carpenter being a vampire, John Sebastian looks quite taken aback, and then irritated. And you see his face fall, and he starts muttering, I really had planned to ask him out for tea.
I took him out for wine instead.
You devil. And then a big grin sort of emblazons itself on Jack Sebastian's face as he totally misinterprets what you're implying.
Nice. I love it. It feels like scene. It was pretty good.
Yep.
So normally in dramatic conflicts, only the scene framer gets credit for them, but gosh, that was so good. I want to give everybody credit because everybody did a great job with the various DCs. So it was a good scene. So I think, in my estimation, Vivian, you definitely, with your mistaken belief that Jack was concerned about you, I think you probably get to mark your initials on that third one there. It's number 3. And you can just write your character's initials is fine. And I definitely think that both Jack and Ida are getting credit for the first one, because that whole thing was kind of coming through pretty strongly. Does anybody else want to make a case for any others?
No, I'm good. Can someone mark me on there, because I'm still recovering my various documents? Sorry.
Yeah, I got it. Maybe. And we're getting a JS as well. And yeah, does that feel good? Cool. All right, who has an idea for a scene to frame?
Can you remind us what the scenes can be about?
Yeah, they can be about anything. But the main thing to keep in mind is the goal. You want to interrogate dramatic conflicts, or you can continue the investigation, or you can, if you have conditions to clear, there's a move called the colleague move. you have to just trigger. You have to just frame an intimate scene with you and one other person, and that lets you clear a condition, an appropriate condition based off how the scene goes.
Okay. I've got an idea for a scene then.
Yeah, just say who's there and where you're
at. We are at a bar or a pub in Whitechapel, across the road from the opium den, and I have asked. I think I've asked Mr. Sebastian, to meet me there. No, I think what it is because I've got the shaken, was it unnerved or shaken, the condition I had? I think
unnerved. Yeah.
Unnerved. Okay. I think he's noticed that I am out of sorts and has basically invited me out to try and calm my nerves.
That's good. Sounds like Jack's sort of business.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna just one thing I want to point your attention to. So on the reference sheet, per the colleague move, you will get to clear a condition depending on how the scene goes, and as long as you can make a case for it, you'll get to clear that. And then your character, Lucian Jack, you'll be able to choose one of several options here on the colleague move list. You can unearth a new dramatic conflict that you both agree on. You can ask the other player a question that their character must answer truthfully and completely, unless it's something about their past that they can't answer. That's getting fixed in the beta. Their character does what you want here and now, or you give them a condition if they refuse, or your character also clears a condition. So, but that's the scene. So by all means, role play.
My dear doctor, I am beginning to suspect that you may have a case of the spleen.
A case of the spleen? Do
yes.
Go on.
You've been so melancholy of late that I really wonder acutely at the balance of your humors.
First of all, I think you need some updating in current medical thinking. I'm sure it's merely that the miasma in the air is getting me down instead. Second of all, I could do with a drink, and I find myself suddenly out of pocket, and you seem to have such wonderfully deep ones.
My dear, I was not aware that you were the sort of woman to reach her hand into men's pockets with such reckless abandon.
I wasn't under the impression I was your type.
Well, one can't eat steak every night, can one?
I smile and say, look, I'm a little short. If you don't have the money on you, could you just flirt with the barman or something?
I wink at the barman, and I think he sends a drink my way, maybe perhaps.
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
Cool.
Yeah, there's nothing super at stake here. Sure.
So the barman puts it down in front of you, and I immediately take it across to me and take a drink from it instead. There was something. I've seen a lot of things. I drag, or corpses are dragged to me near nightly, like cut them open, remove their organs and stuff like that. But I do not like seeing dead children. I haven't got used to it. Never have. And what I especially don't like is seeing dead children moving around and terrifying larger men. It's shaken me.
You say you've seen dead children moving around.
The vampire that we're hunting, Mr. Sebastian. The thing that we're hunting. It's a child. And I finished the drink.
Well, that's rather disappointing, isn't it? And two parts.
That's certainly one way of looking at it.
Well,
why don't we see what we can find?
Yes, I suppose so. If you must be so insufferably dull, we can continue to see what we find.
So it sounds like I think just the act of drinking is going to clear your unnerved condition, like you're getting hold of the situation. Yeah.
Dutch courage.
You're being logical, you're rationalizing it all out, right?
Yeah.
So you can clear that. And then, of course, Mr. Sebastian, you get to choose one from the list there. Do you have the list in front of you?
So I get to choose a new dramatic conflict. Is that what I get?
There are 4 choices there on the colleague move. You can choose any of them that you wish. So unearth a dramatic conflict, ask the character a question that they have to answer. They do something for you here and now, or they get a condition if they refuse, or you get to clear a condition as well. So
I am going to clear my terrified and aroused because I'm sexually disappointed that
aroused is gone. Done. Yep. Good. I love it. Good. All right, then I think the only other person who I have to let frame a scene is Mr. Sebastian before I can end the day phase. So, Mr. Sebastian, and also we should take a look at the DCs too. I think I'll give you credit, Ida, for that first DC. So we'll mark you there. Where Jack thinks they're too good for this sort of work. Feels like you're trying to be sufficiently patronizing to trigger that one. And yeah, so Mr. Sebastian, do you have an idea for a scene?
I have a question. What kind of vehicles are we generally traveling in?
Cabs, like horse-drawn, like small horse-drawn carriages.
I would like to arrive at. I would like to ride my personal horse-drawn carriage to the park where it appears that Vivian, what's her name, right? Is reading a heavy tome, and I am going to invite him for a ride in my carriage, sort of looming above him with my horse-drawn carriage as he sits there on this bench with this tome.
I love it. It's a good scene.
Yeah, sure thing. Mr. Sebastian, I did not expect you to see you here. I can certainly join you if you wish.
Good fellow, hop into my carriage and let us take a brisk, jaunty stroll around the park.
So a carriage would be like, I think we should emphasize how ostentatious this is, right? Yeah. I mean, like a handsome cab with like 2 people, that's not something that most Londoners are going to do anyway, but this is a carriage. Like it's like a Bentley or a Rolls Royce, right? Like it's very ostentatious, right? So yeah, that's just worth putting a point on.
Got like weird gold leaf embellishments and
yeah, it makes us wonder like where you got it or how you have it. Yeah.
Pictures from classical poetry, like.
Okay.
I also like the idea that you're outrageously flirty with everyone apart from the guy that you're really into.
Yes.
Where you're just like, hello, come into my carriage.
Hello, good chap. Won't you come join me for a ride?
Yeah.
It looks like you're in need of some invigorating activity as you bury your nose in that thick tome.
Well, I mean, I certainly wouldn't object to it, Mr. Sebastian. And yeah, I will climb up into the carriage.
So I very pointedly fixate my eyes on the road in front of me as I'm leading this carriage. But my body language is very much shifted openly towards you.
Sorry, breaking
with
Lucian, you broke up just slightly. Say that again.
My body language looks very inviting, but I don't seem to be aware of how I'm sitting. And and I'm sort of sitting here and then leading the horses, and I say, so tell me what you found in that thick tome of yours.
Oh, certainly, Mr. Sebastian. I was just doing a little background reading on some folklore, Romanian, about vampires and such.
You're not so fixating on that matter of vampires, are you? It doesn't seem to be really very fruitful.
Well, you know, forewarned is forearmed and all that.
If you say so. I've always tried to live by the steel of my sword and whatnot. Anyway, I do wonder if you've found anything that you think could help us in our investigation.
Some matter. I mean, with all these things, it's difficult to sort out the truth from the fiction, especially with things being gathered from so many different sources. It's as I'm sure you can understand, it's a wealth of different folklore, and he will carry on like this for.
So apart from what you find in your words on a page, have you ever really seen the inside of a man's head?
I can't say as I have. No, medicine wasn't really my strong suit. I was more into the classics.
It's not what you would expect.
Quite.
And as this awkward silence permeates the carriage, Jack Sebastian sort of leans closer, sort of inch by inch, to you, until, without noticing that he's really been scooching over, he's like right pushed up next to you, but still staring at the road. And he starts doing that sort of like pushing his arm against your arm to see if you shrink away or push back.
Vivian will like stiffen up completely. Very much not making eye contact at the minute. It's slightly flushed. Anyway, did you have a destination in mind, Mr. Sebastian?
Depends on how far you're willing to go, sir.
Well, I did have some further research I was planning to do back at Hargrove House, so but I'm sure we can spare some time.
Yes, by all means. Let us retire to your study, and perhaps we may learn more of what may be hidden between these sheets. And he looks down at the tome.
That feels like scene. I don't think we go any further than that. Good. Fantastic. That was your scene, Sebastian, Mr. Sebastian. So I think I'm going to give you credit for both of those, actually, because I think it came through in both directions. So we'll put some JS's there. All right. So now I can technically end the day phase if I wish. I don't have to. If anyone has like a great idea for another day phase scene, I'm open to it. But if not, we can continue on to the night phase.
The only thing I was thinking was just literally a kind of research montage into the Wembleys,
yep,
but just sort of probably just a on paper sort of thing. So possibly not that interesting for an actual.
Yeah, we can do. Yeah, we can do a research montage. I mean, you did say you were reading through your books and things. Are you going through? I assume you're using your occult books here.
Yes, I think so. So yeah, I'm kind of. I think so. Looking both up on sort of vampiric folklore, and also, seeing sort of seeing if there's any strange reports in sort of the almanacs and newspapers and the like.
Yeah, that's great. I think we'll do the information move with reason. So you're going to,
Yep, certainly.
and because you're using the occult library, you get to roll with advantage, which means you get to roll 3d6 and take the 2 highest.
Sure thing. So that's an 11.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool.
Good result. And you always have the option of there's a 12+ option on the information move. If you wanted to do Janus Mask, you could to bump it up to a 12+, but I don't know if you want to use it for that.
I think I'll stick with the 11 for now. Yeah.
Cool.
So
you get to ask on a 10+, one from the list, and then any follow-up. The follow-up can be any question in the world.
Yeah.
But you start with one from the list.
So yeah, I think it's going to be what happened here recently, with I guess the here being sort of London.
Historically recently, right?
Yeah.
That's very good. Well, piggybacking off of what Dr. Belkis said and has been suggesting and insinuating, this is not the first time that not London, but Paris was for a time thought to be terrorized by a demonic child that feasted on the blood of his victims. But that was, that was 100 years ago.
Sure thing.
And then you get any follow-up that you wish.
So yeah, I think my follow-up is just going to be what references to the Wembley family do I find while I'm sort of conducting this research?
Oh, yes. The Wembleys are actually quite wealthy property owners in the city. The matriarch is a woman named Joanna Wemberley. She's rich as fuck, and she owns a lot of stuff in the city. The Wemberley sisters, no information about them. But...
Sure thing. That's cool.
And yeah, so to be really within the confines of the move, I suppose the follow-up should have been specifically about the Parisian vampire demon child, but that's okay, it's fine. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to suggest that like that name comes up, Wemberley, a lot, even during this time in Paris. So we're going to begin the night phase. We're going to take a break before we do, but before we take the break, I want to set us up for the night phase, okay? So let's talk about the night phase. The night phase is when this game gets really real, okay? We've had our slow, languid, innuendos during the day phase, right? And now we are moving on to the night phase. To the extent that the day phase is very like languid and chatty, the night phase is really, really tight and punchy and visceral. All the scenes are framed by me, and the night phase is governed by this procedure called the overscene. That's not the final name, but right now we're calling it the overscene. The overscene is a scene that takes place on the same night you're engaged in your hunt, but in a different part of the city, and it has nothing to do with your story. It is 100% entirely separate from whatever you're doing. The point of the overscene is twofold. To just show London at night because it's fun. And then also the point of the overscene is to develop visual motifs and thematic ideas in the overseen that we then import into the main scene, and vice versa. You can take elements from the main scene and import it into the overseen, because we break up the overseen. We go back and forth between them, right? And your only chance of getting experience in the night phase, you can only get one experience point, and the only way you can get that one experience point, is if you do what's called an echo in the dark. An echo in the dark is when you incorporate some kind of thematic or visual element, even if it's very loosely, right? It can be pretty loose. You just echo something from the overseen into the main scene, or something from the main scene into the overseen. And as long as you do that once, you get your experience. So I'm going to direct your attention to the document called Overseens. Do you have access to that, Ollie, by chance? I can't hear you, Ollie. You have to unmute.
Yeah, stuff's working again now. I have access to that now.
You have it now. Okay, great. So you want to pull up the Overseens document. And we have several here. In the final game, this is going to be a deck of cards, a deck of tarot-sized cards. But for now, we just have them kind of written here. And I think I'm going to just pick... I think I want to see what you're going to be doing first during the night phase before we pick. So the way we set up the night phase is, this is actually changing for the beta, but I'm going to keep doing it the way we've been doing it for now. But the way this goes is, I ask each of you in turn what you intend to do for the night phase. Like, just what you're going to do. What are you doing tonight? You can be whatever you want, anything in the world. And then after everyone has said, you get a chance to revise it, like if you want to go with them or do something different, right? So everyone's going to say what they're doing during the night phase, and then we dive right into it with the overseen stuff. So let's just go around the table. Mr. de Montfort, what are you intending to do tonight?
So I think I'm going to be trying to find out some more information about the Wembley sisters. I'm not 100% certain. I'm probably going to be doing it by sort of going out and hitting the streets, trying to find something up. Though realistically, what I'm probably actually going to wind up aiming for is going for my beacon in the dark move. My
ostensibly you're looking for the Wemberleys, yeah. Exactly. But you're going to try to. So you're walking alone doing beacon in the dark. I love that. Yeah. Mr. Sebastian, what are you doing tonight?
I am meeting the priest, Father William, in the graveyard behind the cathedral in order to get information from him about the location of our missing friends.
Yeah, I love it. It's good. And what about you, Dr. Belkis?
What was the name of the family of the upper class?
The Wemberleys.
Yeah. That was the Wembleys were involved in the one that Widdicombe mentioned.
Widdicombe,
the DI.
Oh, there was no family. It was just it was just in Holland Park. It was just a body they found. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I am going to go I'm going to go strolling around that park late at night.
Okay. Now that everyone has said, does anybody want to revise their plan, or are we all still good?
I think I'm good.
Okay, good. So I think the overseen we're going to do, since you're all just kind of strolling, and this has been an excessively gay session, we're going to do the excessively gay overseen, which involves strolling the streets at night. So that is going to be Madame Morvaine's Boy Tour, powdered princelings and delightful demigods, all agape for your amusement. That is, I believe, the second or third one down. It's the third one down. So the way this works, this one is entirely paint the scenes. So basically, we will all of us, all four of us, will get a chance to kind of say a little bit about each of the little tour that's going on here. And so just start thinking of sexy boy whores. We're going to take a 10-minute break so that you can review the overscenes and start thinking about those details and think about how you might incorporate those details later into your scenes. And we'll come back. Okay.
So, what's Grandma's drinking song about?
Grandma's Drinking Song is about a matriarchal family of Jewish immigrants in late 1920s New York who are bootlegging alcohol and have a variety of family dramas.
Okay.
It's a comedy game. Uh,
Okay.
you end up writing a drinking song together procedurally as the game develops and singing.
It's so good. Oh my god. Like I I've been going through it this week to get it ready for publication, and I love it. Like I was tittering with glee the whole time I was reading it, Lucian. It's like it's so great. Like I wish like I want to play it. Like I want to get an onion and I want to gather everybody up and I want to do the thing. So
Yeah.
You need an onion to play it.
You
Yeah,
need an onion, yes. The onion of soliloquy, we are told.
Yeah. We played it at DexCon, and there was an actual grandma playing the grandma, and she was so happy.
I love how specific it is. That's great.
Yeah, it's a delight. Yeah, like it's such a delight. All right, you guys ready to do this?
Mhm.
All right, the
Sure.
Overseen. Madame Morvaine's boy tour, powdered princelings and delightful demigods, all agape for your amusement. We should point out that historically this was a thing in London. These like basically whore tours, right? That you could like go on. So you could grab your little guide and do your thing. Madame Morvaine's famous guidebook is a walking tour of all the best boy whores in London. Ship Captain Jackson Flint Broadmoor has just come in for a 3-day protocol, the well-worn guidebook clutched beneath his arm. Let us go walking with him this night. And so the first one we're doing is Prince Louis, powdered, soft, covered in yards of satin and lace. He invites Captain Flint into his boudoir. Paint the scene. What distinctly feminine touches do we see in Prince Louis's room?
Could it be anyone?
Yeah, so I think like on the shelf above the mantelpiece, there's just a series of like 4 china dolls with the sort of the proper, pinkle hair, the big floofy dresses on, staring glassily into the room.
And I will say that Prince Louis has like full length, like silk stockings, like thigh length silk stockings, like draped over a maybe like draped over like a curtain rod, right? We just see them there.
Well, can I say what instead of a curtain rod, it's one of those I don't even know what you call them, but like those decorative dresses, like like a dressing curtain.
Yeah, like a. You mean like the little bit that goes up top of a curtain, or?
Oh no, like I'm trying to think of like something that Mae West would go behind and change.
Oh, sure, yeah,
screen,
like a screen,
like a screen, yeah, like a really decorative screen, and he goes behind there and changes and kind of comes out in a different outfit.
And I'm going to say that scattered across his makeup table are the delicate petals of poppy flowers.
Nice, good. So keep those details swimming in your brains, folks, and use them. It's nighttime. We'll start with Mr. de Montfort. Ostensibly trying to find the Wemberleys, but really, truly spreading your consciousness out, right?
Indeed, yeah. So yeah, I think his plan is he's going to be walking into somewhere sort of fairly upmarket, sort of Mayfair way. He's going to visit one of his, one of the clubs, sort of thing, because obviously the only Wembley he's really managed to track down any information on is the
Joanna, the
Joanna,
matriarch.
that's it, who is obviously presumably moves in fairly high social circles, even if the sisters seem to be a bit more down to earth, shall we say. So I think he's going to start asking around in one of his clubs, sort of thing, and see what people know about Joanna.
Yeah. I mean, are we doing the? I mean, I think so. I'm going to frame this up. I mean, that's ostensibly what you're doing.
Exactly.
But,
Yeah.
Well, so we find you, I think, initially just walking the streets. We're all doing a lot of street walking right now. And I mean, do you want to try to trigger your move?
Yeah, I will.
So just describe it. Like, what does it look like? I think the move says like you spread your consciousness out like a spider web across the city of London, a beacon in the dark for all the nasty, terrible, dark things. What does that look like to you? How do you experience it?
So I think it's almost like going into a fugue state for Vivian. He's for as much as his consciousness is expanding, it's almost expanding without his realization that that's what's happening. So he probably does that sort of thing of just kind of, I mean, I know I've done before, just sort of having a walk around and you're sort of not really paying that much attention to any one detail, to any one thing. It's just sort of taking in the sights and sounds of the city. And I think sort of from sort of outside, it probably doesn't look that different. He's maybe got a slightly sort of glassy-eyed look, slightly unfocused look in his eye, but he's not sort of in a trance sort of thing. And I think he can just feel, but I think the sensation is that sort of the shadows kind of, everything kind of takes on that slightly misty, slightly shadowy appearance.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. Go ahead and roll that move.
So that's a 10. It's sensitivity, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, so that's a 10.
So on a hit, you are immediately confronted by a threat or sending of the GM's choice. These are mechanical terms. Threats are, in this case, the vampire in question. A sending is just a minion of the vampire.
Sure thing.
Or of a threat. Once we have multiple threats on the table, you sometimes don't know what sending or threat you're getting, right? Like it's just some dark shit shows up. On a 10 plus, helpfully, well, you get to on a 10 you get to ask it some questions, and then on a 10 plus, it leaves after it answers the questions. It departs. And so you're doing this as you've described, and you're all this misty stuff is coming or going about, and you are suddenly quite aware of someone following you. You don't see them, you just sense them. And if you turn, you'll see silhouetted in moonlight, there's a boy 20 paces behind you, 8, 9 years old, very young. And we're going to cut away.
Sure thing.
Mr. Sebastian, you've been let off. You said you were going to the church, right?
Yeah.
I think you took a hansom cab to the church this time, and you've just been let off near the church of the priest of whom is a Father Williams, you said?
Father William, yes.
Yeah. And I think as you are approaching the church, you see a man coming out the front, but it's not Father William. It is an older man, tall, jowly, but fit, you know, like he's not like slovenly, and he's wearing a long like officer's jacket, like a naval officer's jacket, and he has one of those like those two pointed hats, right? Like an admiral hat, right, or a captain's hat. He puts that on, and he's coming up the way to cross paths with you, or at least he'll see you at some point. What do? Are you going to try to be seen or try to avoid him?
So I just want to call out that I have with me the reins and bit from my horse, which I have,
Okay.
and a riding crop.
Okay, from you, very good. That's very good. You can add those things to your personal quarters whenever you get a chance. There's a part of your character sheet called personal quarters. You can put bit,
Yes.
bridle, and riding crop.
And I sort of had them in my hands because I didn't expect to encounter anyone else at this hour. And so I sort of surreptitiously tucked them into the inner pockets of my jacket.
Oh, I've got it. I'm going to cut you off right there. This man sees you. Maybe he's a few paces away. And he says, "Well, sir, you seem to have lost your horse."
I do believe, sir, you seem to have lost your manners.
Forgive me. I've been in command for many, many years. I am not accustomed to being polite to young men. I have so many of them under my charge, you see.
Yes, well, I'm sure that the exhaustions of command do wear out one of your age.
My, seems as if you have lost your manners, sir. And he smiles.
Well then, my condolence for our losses. And I try to pass him.
And I think he says, well, aren't you at least going to introduce yourself, sir?
So Jack Sebastian bows deeply and says, Edward James.
Edward James. That's a very common sort of name, isn't it, Mr. James?
Yes.
My name is Admiral Thaddeus Ferguson.
Ah, well, it's been a pleasure. And he bows once again deeply and tries again to proceed on his way.
Admiral Ferguson lets you go, and he turns and continues on his way down the sidewalk. Let's cut over to Holland Park. Holland Park's so fancy that families walk around at night.
Wow, okay.
What does it look like, Holland Park? Give me some detail here.
Okay.
And just, I'll be a little deliberate here. This is a great chance to work in some echoes, right? If you want to try to do that.
Okay, so it is, it's lit by gaslight. There are there's kind of like a paved path all the way through. But people are still sort of like walking arm in arm through the night. Would there be, even though this is a nice area, would there be prostitutes in the park at this time of night?
I don't think so. No,
Cool.
This is a policed, clean area. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it is. It's young lovers, and families, all sort of, just kind of like strolling through the night and enjoying the fact that they can. There's kind of like an immense amount of privilege here, and like people. A young couple, guy bends down to pick one of the poppies from the flower bed and hands it to his the woman that he's courting, I suppose, would be the correct term there.
That's good. Well, so what's your first move? What do you do?
I am looking for areas. So the body was found in here, wasn't it?
There's a body. Yeah, you can actually. I'll give you the exact location where the body was found. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
It was in like an alley behind a row of townhouses.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I was looking through. Basically, I was kind of trying to scout out areas where someone could be jumped, basically.
Yeah. Just do a general information move, I think, with the reason here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's not good. That's it's a 7.
Okay, so you get 1 from the list.
Yeah.
Do you need the list?
No, I have the list. Hang on. I did have the list. Sorry, can you remind me what they are? My bad.
No worries. Let's see.
No, I've got it. Okay. So it's what here is not what it appears to be. What happened here recently? All of those, yeah. I'm going to go for what here is useful or valuable to me.
Yeah, that's good.
Can I work in another echo as well? Just to be
Both,
very
please, by all means. You can
cool.
echo as much as you wish.
Okay. So I find myself following a woman who looks much like the description that Widdicombe gave me, and she slides behind the, like, out of sight into the alley, much like the guy slid behind his changing screen.
Oh, nice, good. That's a good one. Subtle.
It would have been subtle if I didn't say I was going to do it.
Yeah, well, true. Fair enough. That's okay. It's early. We're learning the game. I'm going to be real useful here. You find droplets of fresh blood.
Fresh blood?
Fresh.
Okay. I am going to draw... Do I have a weapon on me?
I don't think so.
Okay. I'm going to wish I brought a weapon with me.
I mean, you can kind of say you did, and we just add it to your personal quarters. It's fine if you have an idea for a weapon. Yeah.
Oh, no. I think I'm just going to curse and say...
wish you had one. Yeah.
Wish I had one, yeah. But curiosity is going to get the better of me, and I'm going to follow the trail of blood.
Good. Let's go back to the overseen. The next stop on Captain Broadmoor's tour. Anthony the Adonis, whose body is rubbed with golden powder. Paint the scene. What do we see in his room that lets us know Anthony is dying of consumption?
Anthony has an empty bottle with a few drops of laudanum in it, like a vial. And tied around the vial is a label with calligraphy on it. And the calligraphy says, for one beyond hope.
And Anthony also has a client with him at the minute. And as the client kind of strokes down his golden chest and then says, "Darling, you're so cold." And Anthony says, "Then warm me up," and drags him closer.
And I think just sort of discarded casually on the floor by one of the bedposts is a relatively nice quality silk handkerchief. It's flecked with gilt and drops of blood in it.
And I'll add one little detail. I think we see a list of Anthony's belongings and who he's going to be giving them to. Mr. de Montfort, there's a little boy silhouetted by the moonlight. He's about 20 paces away. What do you do?
I think I will turn to look at him, take a few more steps forwards, and then look back again.
He's a little bit closer, but stone still.
In which case he's going to sort of turn back on his heel and walk towards the boy. Can I help you, young man?
I was out walking, and I heard you calling to me, but you weren't calling with your voice. You were stroking the back of my neck, beckoning me, and here I am.
I don't. And why? Well, that's. And that brought you to me.
How are you feeling right now?
Concerned, confused. Yeah.
He says, yes, I'm here. You seem somewhat distracted, sir, like you were hoping to find someone else, perhaps?
Yes, I was. I was looking for a lady. Or 3 ladies, I suppose. Have you heard of the Wembley sisters?
And here I think we're probably getting into your questions, right?
Yeah.
Got some questions. What are your questions you're going to ask here? How can I get you to tell me about them, I suppose?
Yeah, that's probably going to be the starting one, yeah.
He says, did you say the name, Wemberley?
Yes, yeah.
He says, that's it then. I am Wimberley as well.
Oh. A pleasure to meet you.
Is it truly a pleasure to meet me? Is it a pleasure to find me here right now? Do you feel pleasure, sir?
In truth, I cannot say that I do. But I suppose a certain amount of satisfaction.
Why do you wish to find Wemberleys in the dark, sir?
I believe they knew a colleague of mine, a man I am looking for.
Well, I will tell you. This colleague you seek, I know of whom you speak, because I've seen you before. And I will tell you, he is free to be retrieved. You have merely to call upon my grandmother, and she will deliver him to you directly.
That is most useful. And what do you want from me?
Well, and at this point, he smiles so that his fangs show. Isn't it obvious, sir, what I want from you? Of course, I would like for you to kneel, please, and expose your neck to me.
I don't think that would be the most sensible course of action for me. I have no wish to. So completely lost the word there. To fall under the thrall of anyone, frankly.
No enthrallment, sir. None whatsoever. We all want a taste. Each and every one of us. But we can't take it, you see, because that is not how it works with you. My grandmother will love to meet you. And he just recedes, not even seemingly moving. His legs just recedes into darkness.
Cool.
I want you to take the unnerved, or maybe even worse than that. Are you? Is it?
Yeah.
Right. How are you feeling?
Yeah. It is probably more than unnerved. Shaken, maybe.
Yeah, take shaken.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Sebastian, I mean, you had your encounter with the rude admiral. Now you are trying to find Father William. What was the purpose of finding Father William?
I want him to tell me what has happened to the disappeared
Simon.
Simon.
Right.
His priest.
And Simon was like they were fooling around, right?
Probably the priest and I are fooling around, and
right, yeah.
The priest, like every time we sleep together, I get more information out of him about things that have been confessed to him.
Oh, good, yeah.
So that's why I have the information about Simon's illegal accounting practices, and I can use this to blackmail Simon.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thanks for the reminder. That's good. You find Father William in the sept. Who knows what he was doing with the admiral, but he's putting away the communal wine at the moment. What do you do?
I want to approach him when he is facing away from me. So I want to wait for him to walk around the back of the altar, or where the like in front of the altar where the congregants would walk up. So I'm facing the crucifix.
Yeah.
And as he walks around, he's wearing his like full white priest regalia, and he's wearing his like special priest hat, and he has this silk cloth, white silk cloth in his hand, and he wipes it around the communion wine, and he places it down, and I see the red stain from the wine on the handkerchief as he puts it inside of his billowing white priestly robes. And I come up behind him, and I'm going to try to put the bit in his mouth from behind. Like, surprise, come around and be like this, so that he's forced to chomp on it.
Let's do night move. What are you afraid will happen if you fail?
I'm afraid if I fail that um, he will throw a punch at me or try to hit me with the. He's still holding the chalice.
Hmm.
He'll either punch me with this hand or like hit me with the actual communion chalice.
I think it's worse than that. He will he will not just punch you. I think for whatever reason, maybe there's some unresolved information or secret bad shit in his brain, but I think he will brutalize you. And what's even worse than that is Admiral Ferguson will be the one to save you.
Yeah.
Roll plus presence if you wish to proceed.
Oh, well. I get a 6.
Okay. I will narrate, and you can stop me at any point and say you want a Janus mask to increase the result. So you go for the bit, and I think there's like a bit of a like struggle, right? Like I think he thinks he's being attacked, and he like turns, and once he realizes it's you, um, I think he actually like he gets renewed strength. He gets angry. There's something you did to him, some betrayal, some I don't know. Maybe you can tell us what that is later. I don't know. But he's pissed, and he's got a big fucking crucifix on the altar, and he just slings it and like slams it, bludgeons you, like just like cracks you right in the head. You're gonna take a physical condition for sure. Probably two. You're gonna take concussion and busted forehead straight away. And
I'm gonna roll that.
Okay. So
I don't want to deal with having concussion dizziness. So I'm going to
you can Janus mask. Yeah.
Janus mask.
You'll mark your box, whichever you choose, the past or the future. If you choose the past, you have to mark the very first box. I can't remember what the future looks like on the.
Okay, I'm gonna do that.
Okay, and then so now your roll becomes 7 to 9 instead.
Great.
And so
and when I narrate, I do the narration at the end of the scene, or
so on a 7 to 9, I still get narration rights, but it just won't be as.
I mean,
that's like how we conclude the session is you all narrate your little flashbacks and stuff.
Right.
So you need to worry about it yet.
Okay, great.
So we rewind. You put the bridle around his mouth, and I call that, and he's into it, right? Like he's totally into it. Like I assume this is going into some kind of kinky place with the riding crop and stuff, right? Like right here on the altar. And you can help me develop this. What do you have in mind?
So I'm gonna basically be straddling him from behind with like this bit in his mouth, pulling back on it so that his mouth is being pulled backwards, and I'm going to whisper gruffly in his ear, like, tell me where he is. Tell me where James is. But then I'm going to pull back so that when he answers, he can't really speak. And I'm going to be like, what was that? What was that, Father William?
I love it.
Like really mess with him.
I love it. And the complication is, I'm going to wrap this little moment here. The complication is you don't see it, but standing in the doorway, silhouetted by moonlight, is Admiral Ferguson. He's watching this.
Yeah, but I don't see it.
You don't see it.
And I'm going to be like I'm afraid that you, My Little Pony, have not been properly broken in.
We'll pick up with that. That sounds like a good pickup. We'll pick that up. Let's cut over to Dr. Belkis. You're following the blood, yeah?
I am, yes. Yeah. How much is there?
It's just little droplets.
Okay.
A good trail, though.
Yeah. Almost as if I'm being led.
Maybe. You are at the rear of a townhouse, several like this. It's like probably like a 4-story, like more narrow, like very narrow, tall, sweeping townhouse. Most of the lights, there are lanterns, or there are lights lit in numerous rooms. They probably have gas. They have like, gas lanterns. And the blood droplets lead right up to like a back servant's entrance. What do you do?
I am going to walk up to the door and try the handle and see if it's locked.
It's not.
I'm going to creep inside.
Yeah.
This is a terrible idea, but I'm going to.
That's a really terrible idea. Night move. What are you afraid will happen if you get caught?
I'm afraid someone might mistake me for a burglar, which I essentially am, and I'm afraid I might get killed.
Oh, it's worse than that. You will become an object of great fascination of the owner of this house, and trust me, that's worse than death. Do you wish to continue?
Yes, I do.
Roll plus composure.
That is a 13.
Nice. You get a bonus as well. I like that for now. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
Let's go to the third over scene. Our third stop, Captain Broadmoor's tour. Gianni, an Italian temple. Olive-skinned, breathtaking. What do we see that lets us know Gianni is having the time of his life?
I think it's him and there's a bunch of other people, and they're sort of in a this kind of like swirl. They're drinking and swirling and dancing all around, and he is singing. They're singing a song, and he doesn't understand. They're not singing in English. They're singing, say, French, and he doesn't speak French. He's just trying to keep up with the French, and he's like saying it phonetically.
Anybody else want to go?
I think that if you look on the night table, you can see that he was wearing a crucifix, but he has taken it off.
Hopefully didn't bludgeon anyone with it.
And I think over his sort of dressing table, there's lots of notes. And they're obviously sort of like short notes penned by admirers, and he's got them pinned up sort of quite proudly, over his dressing table.
And I think mine was kind of similar to that, so I'll just kind of change it a little bit. I think there's just a wad of cash. I don't know if like paper money would have been a thing at this time, but we'll say it is. He's got like a wad of like cash of various currencies, various lands. It's good money when you're an Italian temple.
Paper money's a thing, but it's huge. It's like that big.
Okay, got it. Well, I just want to get a sense of like, you kind of did what you intended to do, Mr. de Montfort. I suppose you can continue to, maybe, do you want to go find the Wemberley sisters? I mean, that's an option.
I think what Vivian's actually going to do is just head into the nearest pub and sit down at the bar, order a gin.
The nearest pub in Whitechapel. Just be really clear here what we're doing right now.
And
describe this pub. Like, just what's the vibe?
It's it's a proper. This is it is a pub where people come in to. It's I've forgotten the not a gin palace because those are the nicer ones, but it's you go in there to buy your gin and drink your gin, and it's probably quite subdued. It's not sort of like lots of people getting rowdy and drunk. It's a lot of people coming in here to drink and stare at the wall and that sort of feeling. And I think it's just going to go up to the bar.
I think you see, as you approach the bar, you see that young man you left with the other night from the opium den. I think we'll name him Charles. Charles Chang. He's Mrs. Chang's grandson, born in London. And he sees you. He's dressed, I think, like for purposes of the opium den, he dresses in kind of like traditional Chinese, sartorial choices just to keep up a particular vibe that they're going for there. But here he's dressed in like, I think he's got like a pretty nicely cleaned up, men's suit with a check bow tie, right?
Yeah.
And he sees you and he says, "Oh, Vivian, how are you?"
"Oh, Charles, I wasn't expecting to see you here. Can I get you a drink at all?"
Please do. I mean, yes, of course. I would love that. I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to go reading books with you about Mandarin the other night. It sounded very exciting, and I had to get back, of course, to my grandmother.
Of course, I understand. And he'll sort of order drinks. He's quite he's very pale at the minute. There's a bit of a sort of shake to his hand, and he gets the drinks, and as he passes the drink to Charles, his hand is cold. It's sort of gone into shock.
I think he takes your hand. He like kind of like as he's taking the drink, he like holds your hand, right? Or whatever. As he's handing you the drink, he holds your hand, and he says, "Vivian, you feel so. You seem a little shaken. You feel really cold. Are you all right?"
"Yes, I just had a bit of a turn."
And he leans in really close and says, "Are you sure you're all right?" In a very like breathy way, right? How are you feeling right now?
Conflicted is probably. I think he is. He is turned on by Charles, and a part of him is kind of longing for like human contact at the moment, but he's also very. He is incredibly repressed.
What are you afraid will happen if you lose control?
Yeah, I think he is afraid that he will give into his carnal desires. And
it's worse than that. You'll give into your carnal desires in a very public way right now. Roll with composure, please.
Certainly. That's a 10, sadly.
It is the saddest 10 of all the 10s. Yeah. You have control. How do you describe how you keep it together?
Yeah, so I think he will kind of let Charles sort of hold on to him for a moment, but then just sort of pull back and say, "Well, her bottom's up," and
this poor guy.
and yeah, knock back the glass of gin.
Yeah, we'll cut there. That's good. So yeah, continue your power play here.
So I say the priest, well, Father, it does seem that though you have learned the rituals appropriate to your station in the church, you have not been properly broken in to your position in the stables. And continues to pull back on the bit and whisper into his ear. And then after a little bit of this, he sort of loosens up on the bit enough that his lips come free from it, so that he could talk if he wanted.
Yeah.
And puts his mouth very, very close to his ear and says, "Do you have anything to confess?"
I'm gonna just roll forward with it. I don't need to move here.
Okay.
He says, I have many, many skeletons in my closet, as you know, Jack.
Yes, well, there's a particular bone I had in mind.
Oh, really? I come searching for bones, have you?
Yes, and I seem to have found one. So, tell me, where is the man?
He's been engaged in some very, very important work with a man I only just met with, in fact.
What is the nature of that work?
Let's just say a friend of mine needs to engage in some very, very expensive imports. And Mr. Clark is helping with the books. It's a very, very complex transaction, you see.
Jack Sebastian reaches down and grabs him between the legs forcefully and whispers in his ear, "I wasn't asking for clues."
That's a cut. I love it. You got 13, Doctor. That's a good result. 12 plus is a you get a bonus. So you're gonna be able to sneak into the house and sneak around, and that's great. You get a bonus as well. If you have any ideas for the bonus, I'm into it, but I have some thoughts too.
Can I bring in an element? I don't know if it's too.
Please do, yeah. I mean, I'll let you know if you go too far, but
yeah. I just wanted to get that there was like a soft singing, in a language that I don't understand, like a chorus of voices in a language I don't understand, coming down from over the from up the spiral staircase.
Nice, good. I love it. The bonus will be you will not only be able to sneak into the bottom floor of the house, you could sneak up to the top and see what that is if you wish. You have the full run of the place.
Yeah, let's do that.
And you go into the sort of main bottom floor area where there's like a big foyer, chandelier. It's very richly appointed. Everything's like a lot of money here, right? And there's a staircase that goes up, right? And you creep your way up, right? What are you doing as you kind of like go about? Are you keeping an eye open for anything in particular, or how are you?
Yeah, well, I'm making sure that I'm not getting that I'm not going to get caught, but I'm also looking out for. I'm looking out. I'm just sort of generally investigating, looking out for any clues, seeing if I can find that blood trail. Has the blood trail stopped as soon as I've got in here?
Yeah, you don't know where the origin of it was,
Yeah, no,
really.
I've completely been lured. I'm going to pick up a candlestick as I make my way out past the stairs and past a stained glass window of the Fall of Lucifer.
Yeah, that's good. Give me an information move with composure. See if you can notice anything while you're sneaking about.
That is a 7.
7, very good. One question from the list, unless you want to spend Janus and bump it up. But otherwise, one question from the list.
Yeah, we'll just go with one in a minute. What happened here recently?
You are there's a woman in all the paintings on the walls who figures prominently in most of them. Older woman, pile of auburn hair, stately, but with a little smile on the corner of her lips in every painting. She's painted in different scenes, Renaissance scenes, sort of drab, plain, boring English portraiture, all that sort of thing, right? And there's a painting in a little, kind of like a little salon gallery thing off to one side or off the main, the main thoroughfare there, of the same woman being painted like one of your French girls, right, on a on a divan, quite naked, but and so yeah, whoever this woman is probably the owner of the house. And yeah, so it's a basic answer, but yeah, most recently she's posed for this nude portraiture, this nude painting.
Okay, I'm going to go investigate the source of that singing.
Let's go to the final overscene. Thomas, a rather plain young man, barely a man, really, who is clean and able. What do we see that lets us know Thomas is here against his will?
There is a section of the room that is has a variety of chains, some of which have anchors at the end.
And he is being walked towards this room by an older woman, somewhere into probably in her 50s. And at first it just looks like she's got her arm around him kind of affectionately. But then as we pan down, we can see that she's got her hand very much around his wrist, kind of holding him in.
I think as well the room itself is dark. There's no windows in here. It's just a single lamp lit in the room, and there's no personality to the room.
And I'll throw in that I think there are bars on the windows. So you've had a night of drinking with Charles Chang, and he just keeps trying to I mean, just friend zoning him to death here.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you're just totally missing all of his like suggestions and innuendos and all this other stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And he just says to you, he says, Vivian, I don't know what else to say. You're a very, very proper, reserved, young English gentleman. And I suppose your mother would be very, very proud of how you've turned out.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Charles. It's nice of you to say so.
So, shall I walk you across town back to Hargrave House?
Are you sure it wouldn't be too much trouble for you?
This is a dangerous neighborhood.
And thank you. That would be
It's best if you don't go
most
alone.
kind of you.
And
yeah,
yeah.
Vivian probably is a little unsteady on his feet at this point.
Yeah.
He's probably not a big drinker at the best of times.
Yeah. But I think I'd like to just kind of wrap this really tidily here and just say that like you are quite drunk and you are stumbling about. And if Charles was a worse person, he might try to take advantage of that, but he doesn't. I think at a certain point you stumble and you like can't really like keep going, and he like finds a bench. Sits you down. He takes off his coat and he puts it over you. And he's like, we'll just wait here for a minute for a cab to come by, okay?
Thank you, Charles. And he will put like his arm around him at that point and sort of actually pull him quite close, sort of nuzzle into him. But yeah.
Good. So back to this little encounter with Father William. You want answers. And he says, his name is Thaddeus Ferguson. Admiral Thaddeus Ferguson. He helped chart the Northern Passage. Surely you've heard of him.
Yes, I have.
Well, let's just say that he and a friend of his are engaged in some very, 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 very expensive transactions, all right?
And
lots of books to be kept, all right?
Where does Admiral Ferguson reside?
Boy, what a perfect cut. Over to Dr. I keep forgetting your last name, Dr. Belkis. In the TV show, it would go like that. It would cut. Boom. You go upstairs, Dr. Belkis, and you see a woman, this older woman, clearly the older woman in the paintings. Mm-hmm. And she's wearing like a sort of maroon crushed velvet gown, right? Hair kind of done up. And she is singing, she's singing with like a trio of younger women, 3 blonde women, and they're like singing body songs or whatever, right, in different languages. I haven't seen you yet. What do you do?
So you said that she was there in like Renaissance paintings and stuff. So she's
lots of various.
Yeah. Okay. So she's hundreds of years old, probably.
But the one that was being painted of her also had a sort of stylized way about it. So who knows?
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Maybe not. What are they? So they're just singing all together at the minute.
Yeah, just kind of like having wine, singing, carrying on a bit. They're like in an upper, like it's almost like a loft with like couches and chairs and things. It kind of looks down into the bottom floor.
Right. I'm so tempted to just walk.
You are very alone.
I am, but I am gonna. Yes, no. I am gonna try and get out of here whilst I still can.
You may. And that ends the night phase. So I got echoes from everybody, I'm pretty sure. So everybody gets to mark an experience point for that. And we have just a couple things to resolve before the session is over. I need anybody who's marked Janus Mask, you need to get ready to narrate or do whatever the thing is it wants you to do. And then I have a little denouement scene after that. So I think you were first. I think yours is the easiest, Dr. Belkis, because I think you just state who the person is that you lost, right?
Yeah, that was Magdalena, and she was my childhood best friend through adulthood.
Okay, so you are trying. So the person you lost, Magdalena, your childhood friend through adulthood. Okay, good. Thank you. And then I think we're owed a scene from you, a flashback scene, correct, Mr. Jack?
Yes.
Read it to us first. What does it say?
It says, narrate a flashback to your childhood that shows how even then people were willing to suffer in order to make you happy. And I'm going to say that when I was a small boy, I found a wild kitten that was just out in the field somewhere. And I rescued the kitten, and the kitten was immediately very loyal to me, but would scratch my father and would scratch my siblings, sometimes so much that it would draw blood. And whenever anybody in my family would try to say, you know, we have to get rid of this cat or clip its nails or something, this is a nuisance, I would just hold up the cat against my cute cherubic face with my tumbling curls and you know, say, oh, but isn't she just darling, in this very appealing way, and everyone would say, oh, the boy with the cat. Okay, you can keep it. And I was maybe 6 years old.
I love
I'm
it.
picturing you as the kid from The Innocents there.
And I don't think you marked one, did you?
No, I'm going to have to start cheating on my dice rolls next time, I think.
Yeah, it'll come, because especially once the conditions start to rack up, because then you start rolling at disadvantage when you have conditions that apply. We conclude with a scene called The Enemy. We see that same street on Holland Park, that same townhouse. We see the laughter, the dancing. Maybe we even see Dr. Belkis sneaking off into the night. But we see Admiral Thaddeus Ferguson walking up the street, doffing his captain's hat at passers-by. People stop him constantly to shake his hand. He's a national hero. And he goes to this townhouse. He doesn't walk to the front door. He walks to an alley in between the townhouse and the next one over. And he looks up into a window. And he sees the little boy standing in the window, staring down at him. And he's staring back at the little boy. And as the camera zooms in on Admiral Ferguson's face, he just has tears streaming down his cheeks as he looks at the little boy. And that's the end. And so now we go to end of session questions. Let's start with Vivian. Please read those. No one's getting the third one, so you don't have to bother with the third one, but just do the first two. And you're muted, David. So.
Yeah, so did you have a face-to-face encounter with a dark entity?
You did, mark an experience.
I did, yeah. And did you advise counsel someone rather using your supernatural affinities as the basis for that advice? I don't think so specifically.
Don't think so.
No.
Yeah, I don't think it quite came up. All right. Jack Sebastian.
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones that we did during the day for experience are...
those are not experience. Those are just marking the dramatic conflict tracks. And then once those fill up, then you get experience. They fill up, and then we have a little conversation about where they stand, and then you get to mark XP. So you just got experience for it. You should have one experience for your echoes, and then you'll get some right now for the end of session questions.
Great. Did you convince someone to give themselves over to sensual delight?
Yes, I would think you did. Mark an XP.
And did you express a clear preference for the beautiful?
Yes, you did. Mark an XP. Your ostentatious carriage was a sledgehammer way of doing that. No, there was other times too. All right, Dr. Bookies.
I didn't do either of mine, unfortunately. So it's
well, read them. Let's see.
Did you shoot down an idea because it wasn't rooted in science for a reason?
I don't know if you shot an idea down, but I think you were sufficiently pedantic at different points during the session, or like, I think it was in the spirit of it. I'll give it to you because especially when you were kind of like, there's a boy crawling the rafters and like it was very that, right?
And did you secretly engage in romantic or emotional behavior at odds with your cold logical exterior?
I don't know if you did that. Although you fake seduce the vampire, but I don't know if that really.
No, I don't.
Yeah, I don't think it really counts. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, so we'll be continuing tomorrow night at the same time. I hope the English folk are doing okay. I know it's very late right now, but I hope you all had a good time. I had a terrific time. It was very, very fun. That was a great first session of the Between. So.
Oh yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks very much.
I really like the game. It's cool. I love the overscene. It's a really cool technique.
It's it's really fun. And once you get the hang of it, especially, like, it takes a couple sessions, but once you really get into it, like you're like firing. You're like, oh shit! You start to like really wrap up details and stuff.
Yeah.
Great. Don't forget for GauntletCon, if you go into the Dreams and Prizes channel of the Discord and give shout outs to your fellow players or myself, you get entered into drawings to win free games all weekend. Okay.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.